Hello and welcome everyone to On The Esky, sports podcast where we wrap up all the week in sport, have a few beers and talk some dribble while we do it. Welcome back all our fans and friends from around the world listening to the podcast. We've got a big show planned, as we always do. We've got to kick off with the IPL final. And congrats to the Super Kings winning their fourth. We'll review that in a moment. We've got week 7 preview of the NFL coming up. The NBA is back. Champions League football as well as EPL, the English Premier League going on. And then in the final round, we'll tackle some UFC, a little bit of news in the local leagues, as well as there's a Major League Baseball happening. There's an F1 race on the weekend. But as always, there's timestamps throughout this, so you can skip ahead to some of the other sports that you're more interested in. As always, you please consider chucking us a subscribe on our YouTube or follow on the Instagram. We will be back in the studio next week. This will be the last lockdown session.
Let's go.
We'll be able to get nice and cuddly around the table and
it's a big table. We can spread out.
Yeah, true. And talk some dribble as always. How you boys been? Of course, we got Monks and Peps, and I am Sean, back again for another podcast session tonight.
Boys, I forgot 2 things during the lockdown. A, how good the pub is, and B, how shit the next day after going to the pub is. I had lined up a bit of golf with Monkey Magic, the fastest research man in Australia, and I missed the tea time, but Monkey also slept in as well. So it actually benefited both of us. But yeah, the pubs are back. Stuff's opening back up. I'm pretty happy. And we've got a massive, massive week of sport to get stuck into. Monks, how was your week? Did you have a few beers Saturday night or just fucking the alarm didn't go off?
The alarm did go off. I had like 3 or 4 alarms set. I was real keen for a hit of golf. And I just slept through all of them. I think that 7:30 a.m. tea time isn't the best for me, not having any kids or anything. I'm not used to waking up that early on a Sunday morning.
I'm not normally too bad with getting up early on a Sunday morning, except for when the pub's open for the first time in 3 months. But it is what it is. Maybe we'll try again this weekend.
Might have to, yeah.
Speaking of this weekend, we've got a bunch of sport to get stuck into. Would you like to kick us off with shout a beer?
Yeah, no, definitely. So this week I'm going to shout a beer to Paddy the Batty Pimblett. Rising success of Cage Warrior, bursting onto the UFC scene quite recently. You'd think that he would be given the benefit of the doubt in situations like being a supporter of the away team at the football over in England. We're talking about the EPL. But that was not the case. So as a Liverpool supporter, Paddy was invited to Vicarage Road, home of Watford FC, by the Watford goalkeeper, Ben Foster.
What
was that?
Ben Foster's Australian, is he? Or maybe I fucked that up.
Nah, he's English, I'm pretty sure.
Fucked it up, keep going.
Anyways, continue.
Anyway. So during the match, Paddy actually got kicked out by security. He got booted for celebrating too much, I think, when Liverpool scored one of their many goals in that match, citing that they were concerned for his safety. There was a bit of back and forth. He complained that it wasn't him, it was a different crowd. Anyway, gracious in defeat, he thought he'd probably be able to find a good English pub to finish watching the game. No luck there either. So he got kicked out of the boozer he went to because it was the hometown pub. There was no reports of if he found another pub or if he was even able to finish watching the Reds just dismantle Watford on the weekend. But if you didn't get a pint, the next one's on me.
There's two questions I want to ask of this situation. The first is a statement, is shout out to Paddy, elite athlete getting booted from multiple venues. I myself have experienced that. And secondly, how the fuck do you get kicked out for celebrating a goal too hard? Like, surely there must have been a bit more in this than when you score. There's and granted on the night I think that they put 4 or 5 on them, but it's normally an occasion when your team finds the old onion bag. How do you get booted for celebrating too hard?
That's it. I don't know. I was watching the highlights of the game and I mean, obviously there was a lot of goals scored by Liverpool, and the crowd was absolutely roaring. So, I mean, I haven't seen any reports contrary to what Paddy's put up, but sounds like he was just having a good time. Nothing too out there, and yeah, just didn't like him. Whether it was because he was sitting part in the Watford crowd rather than Liverpool crowd,
Yeah.
who's to say? But doesn't mean you can't.
Sounds like every single time I've been denied or from a venue, entirely not my fault, and
Of course.
all on the security guards, I think.
Yeah.
Moving forward, I'll shout a beer to another Paddy. This time, Paddy fucking Mills, making his debut for the Brooklyn Nets. A lot of talk around Kyrie Irving. Is he going to be able to play this season? He's got his tinfoil hat on. He doesn't want to get vaccinated. And the Nets come down pretty hard and said, look, you're not playing at this stage until you want to come through with the vaccination. Charles Barkley had some comments, saying he's essentially getting paid $17 million to sit at home. But it's opened the door for our boy Paddy, and he has just come through with his Olympic form, and he put on 21 points coming off the bench. And guess what? He was 7 of 7 from 3 points on opening night. An absolute roarer of a game for Paddy Mills. So next one's on me, Bella Pat. And I imagine Joe Harris might be thinking a little bit about that starting position there. Paddy definitely knocking down the door to get a starting role. So next one's on me, to Canberra's own Paddy Mills.
That's awesome effort. 7 for 7 for 3-pointers. He might need to give Ben Simmons a few tips.
Yeah, at Ben Simmons. Probably and attitude, I think, but we might get stuck into that a little bit later. Sean, who you got?
Well, we can rename him. We'll call him Paddy Keelam if you want to make it make sense with what you do. But we're talking about Case. Case Keenum going to play starter for the Browns on Friday. Well, Friday our time, Thursday night football. I want to shout him a beer because he's probably going to get Fangio fired, and we'll cover that in the NFL preview when we get to it.
How do you figure that?
I'll save it. We'll when we talk about Thursday night football, we'll do that. But I want to shout him a beer now with what potentially is going to go down.
So I'm sensing a lack of confidence in your own side in tomorrow night's game.
Yes. And with that, I think it's cricket time. So we kick off with cricket. We mentioned it in the intro. The IPL final happened. We will start there and review that. The T20 World Cup has just kicked off as well. About a week into games for the what we call it, play-in tournament.
Associate Nations, play-in tournament. Essentially the minnows, but Sri Lanka and Bangladesh out there trying to get in. I did see a few good memes getting around about being sports tragics and whatever, and the missus being in your ear about doing whatever chore you've got to do. And hang on, I just got to catch this last over of Oman versus Papua New Guinea. Some really exciting stuff. But we will get stuck into that in just a second. But first, let's have a look back at the IPL final. Chennai Super Kings coming away with their fourth title in IPL 14. They batted first. They made 3 for 192, one of the biggest scores we've seen since the resumption of the IPL in the Emirates. Young gun Ruturaj Gaikwad continued his good form before hauling out to Sunil Narine. We had highlighted his impact and he bowled very well. But unfortunately, the rest of the Knight Riders couldn't really emulate him with the ball. Lockie Ferguson and Varun Chakravarthi absolutely copped it. And it was by a man by the name of Faf du Plessis, 86 off 59. Also a little bit of help from Udhapa and Moeen Ali. And that really set them up for that big score. And then the Knight Riders, in return, they actually got off to an awesome start through Venkatesh Iyer and Shubman Gill, both making 50s. But it was a weird one because Iyer got dropped by Dhoni on naught, and it was an absolute sitter. And we'll have a little chat about Dhoni in a second. And then a real weird one with Shubman Gill. He hit the cable of the spider cam, the webcam that flies around giving you the footage from above, and got caught, and it got ruled a dead ball, which is the rule. If you hit the stadium in an indoor, the roof of the stadium in an indoor stadium or anything up there, it does get ruled a dead ball. So a few little things that swung the Knight Riders' way, but then when those two both got out, it was an absolute shambles. They started falling like flies, and we're talking about good bats in Nitish Rana, Owen Morgan, who the captain didn't really show much throughout the whole tournament. Dinesh Karthik, Shakib Al Hassan, they all fell without making double digits. And it was good to see Aussie Josh Hazlewood playing pretty well. And the Lord, Shardul Thakur, also picked up a few wickets. And in the end, the Super Kings won pretty comfortably. Didn't get a last over thriller, but they deserved it. It was them and the Delhi Capitals really, throughout the end of the season being quite dominant. So congrats to them. Dhoni, he's 40 years old. He's definitely showing his age a little bit. This may have been the last time that he's played in the IPL, boys. What did we think about him?
Well, besides having a great career, I was just having a quick Google. Chris Gale is 42, so he's not to say that he can't do some mercenary services and just go around where he needs and just get paid. It's not like he has to, if he's keeping, he's not like he expecting him to do much, stand on one end, try to hit sixes and keep in the field. Like, they're not asking a lot of the body, so he could potentially play an extra year or two. But otherwise, international test level throughout the entire game, he's been excellent at all those levels. So if it is his time and he's starting to give away the game completely, then yeah, that's an excellent career for him.
Indeed, one of the best white ball players of all time, and synonymous with India and the IPL. So if it is the last time that we've seen him, congrats on a great career. But you are right. Just has to keep wicket and go out and try and do what he does and finish games. But I don't know. For me, it was the first time that I'd seen Dhoni noticeably slower, both behind the stumps and with the bat. So it'll be interesting to see what happens. We'll obviously slide straight into some kind of coaching or media role. You'd imagine a massive name in the subcontinent. And speaking of massive names, Faf du Plessis, he was man of the match. I think he was the second highest run scorer throughout the tournament. And Monks, if you just wouldn't mind searching, Cricket South Africa put out a congratulations, I think, to Ndidi, who didn't play a single game for the Super Kings, but forgot to mention Faf du Plessis. There's been a bit of back and forth with them on Twitter, a bit of bad blood. Faf will not be playing in the World Cup. He has chosen to just play club T20 cricket of late, and that's, I think, where the falling out is around. Marks, have you got any news surrounding the falling out between Faf and Cricket South Africa?
Has Cricket South Africa, before you answer that, sorted out their governance problems yet?
Mate, fuck if I know, because Faf isn't playing, and AB de Villiers, who we saw as well in the IPL, had a little bit of a quiet tournament. He's not playing in this T20 World Cup. So that changes the dynamic a lot. You look at their team on paper, it's pretty good. You add those two in it and you start thinking about them as contenders. So as Australians that are in a group with them, as well as England and the West Indies, it's good news for us. But going back to the I think there's a bit of back and forth on Twitter. Monks, have you got any information for us?
Nothing too much further to add. So yeah, obviously pretty soon after the match, Cricket South Africa sent out a quick little tweet, as you mentioned, congratulating, what was his name? Ndidi. That's it. Yeah. For winning the IPL. Obviously, as you mentioned, hadn't played. And yeah, I guess it did kick up a little bit of a stink over Twitter, over socials, probably between Faf and them, and also a lot of other players and I guess just general public. So yeah, after that, the CSA put out another post congratulating Faf as well, and pointing out that he was man of the match as well. So I think they've tried to smooth it over, but yeah, probably to Sean's point, with governance, it's just a hot mess at the moment from the sounds of it.
Yeah,
it's starting to become like the West Indies management or board, I should say, in that they're trying to get their guys to play these white ball tournaments for not much money, and then coming down hard when they do chase a bit of coin, and so they should, going to play the big club T20 tournaments like the IPL. But I just don't understand how you could go into a World Cup and not have a guy like Faf there. But yeah, very, very interesting. It'll be and it'll be telling to see what happens. I'm not too concerned about us. We'll get stuck into that in just a second. But England and the West Indies, you'd think, will be a lot stronger than South Africa on paper.
Yeah, I agree. And just to confirm, there was, I think it was late April, early May, there was a vote to put in a new governance structure, best practice in South Australia and international, supposedly. So it sounds like they resolved their governance issue and won't get banned. That's why they're obviously playing in the T20 World Cup. So they have sorted it out, but not to say that there is, the best practice going forward. But we'll have to wait and see. I just want to go back to this game, of course, because I don't want to say we overlooked the Super Kings or whether the Super Kings kind of came into this a bit quiet, because I think everyone, myself, I'll point myself directly, was very much thinking the Knight Riders on their ride and the momentum they had running into that final could potentially take it all away. But then, the Super Kings just came out and dominated. And I think good old mate Rikin Patel was talking about, he thinks the Super Kings are going to win that easy. Well, they kind of did after they had got through the openers and got that massive collapse where they, as you said, 6 guys didn't make double figures. So they really ran through them. So maybe a little bit of anticlimactic end to the tournament there. With the Super Kings doing it easy in that second half of their second innings. But a good end to the tournament overall, I would say. One of the better teams definitely there. Of course, another team that had won multiple tournaments as well, got 4. I don't know. It's not something I can get super excited about and we go like, yeah, fuck yeah. It's more just like, okay.
It was a little anticlimactic. Obviously, everyone wants to see it go down to the last over, but as well, 27 runs or whatever. It wasn't a complete blowout either. I think as well for us, it's probably the most invested we've ever been in the IPL. I do remember IPL 1. I think I was 16 and staying up all night to watch, what was at the time kind of absurd to see all the world's best cricketers playing in the IPL. And I probably haven't been as excited about it since then. Obviously, us starting a podcast, and having a little bit of back and forth with, the Delhi Capitals brings you right into it. But you can just see how far and beyond any other level of competition it is. It's akin to the Champions League, I think, in soccer, in that you're watching teams that would go out and beat most international teams, and the standard of cricket was unbelievable. So looking forward to the next one. It's a short turnaround because of the COVID impact. I think the auction is within the next month or so, and then the IPL 15 should be kicking off about April next year. So not a massive time to wait for IPL 15. Monks, have you got the best bats and bowlers from the tournament? We obviously saw the breakout of Ruturaj Gaikwad. He'll be one to watch for India coming forward. Faf du Plessis, I believe, finished second amongst the run scorers. And if you just wouldn't mind running us through maybe the top 5 run scorers and the top 5 wicket takers.
Just before you do that auction's between December and January is when they're planning.
A couple months away.
Yep. So going back to stats for IPL, so as you said, Gaikwad scored the most runs at 635. Faf came in second at 633.
Runs, isn't it?
Yeah, that's it. That's it. Sorry, I'll go back to Gakpo. His high score was 101.
Yeah.
Faf was there at 95, not out. Behind them we had KL Rahul at 626, so still only a few runs behind Faf there.
Top playing finals, so massive tournament there from KL Rahul.
Yeah. I mean, considering how the Kings, I guess, went throughout the leagues, definitely carried them. His high score was 98. After them, we had Shikwa Darwin sitting there at 587, so starting to drop off a little bit there. And to round out the top 5, we had our Glenn Maxwell at 513.
Yeah, good to see him killing it. No real big scores, I don't think, from Maxi, but just very consistent with making 50s, making them quick, and good to see that running into the World Cup. And he, in IPL 13, was very, very lackluster. So good to see him get a bit of form. Wouldn't you mind running us through just the top few bowlers and maybe a few to look out for in the World Cup?
Yeah. So I'll go top 5 again. I'm going to mint some of these names as well. I'm not as good as you there, Peps. So we had Hashwell Patel with 32 wickets, taking out first place. After him,
by a long way, wasn't it? At RCB, he was a fair few ahead of the next, wasn't he?
Yeah. So we have Avish Khan sitting at 24.
Delhi Capitals.
Yep, Delhi Capitals. Yep. And then after him, we had Jasprit Bumrah and Shardul Thakur both at 21 wickets. Yep. And then rounding out the top 5, we had Mohammad Shami at 19.
How interesting is that? The top 5 wicket takers, all Indians. So big money spent on a few of the internationals. We saw Sunil Narine, the West Indian, come into some form towards the end of the tournament. But the top 5, all Indians. Look, we're going to talk about the World Cup in a second, but it seems like anything less than making a final, if not winning it, is an underachievement for this Indian side.
I reckon it sounds like it, yeah. I just want to quickly go back to Dhoni. You mentioned that he'd probably slot straight into some sort of coaching duties if he does finally retire from all forms. On Twitter today, so India and Australia were having a warm-up match. He was spotted giving keeping drills to punt off on the side of the field. So yeah, or he's sitting there ready to go, I guess.
Be nice, wouldn't it? You finish up and it's all laid out for you. Obviously, one of the most accomplished Indian cricketers of all time. You'd imagine just slots straight into a coaching role there. Now we do have a World Cup to talk about. We did mention the associate nations have started their play-in tournament. I think Sri Lanka are already confirmed in. Bangladesh dropped a game to Scotland, so I think they've got Papua New Guinea, so they should still go through. And by the end of tonight, I think we'll know who the last 4 teams are to come into the tournament proper. Us as Australian fans, we're in a group with England, West Indies, South Africa, and just recently Sri Lanka. Boys, we haven't got a good record in playing T20 international cricket. We've played fuck all, and the most recent tournaments we lost to West Indies and Bangladesh. We can't have our heights or our expectations set too high here. What are your thoughts around our side?
Hard to say, because those teams that did lose were probably Australia A&a-half, maybe.
Yeah.
Like there's at least 5 guys to come in.
Yeah, that is true. That is true. My concern is the guys that weren't playing. Sure, Maxwell hadn't played in those, and he's out there killing it. But Warner did fuck all in the IPL.
Sat on the bench. They didn't big him.
Smith was playing a game
about 30
here or there. Couldn't even break into Delhi Capitals best 11 in some of the games. My concern is, those guys that weren't playing in those games against Bangladesh and West Indies aren't really elite T20 cricketers at the moment.
Yeah, well, they'll make us better, definitely.
Definitely.
Like you say, England and West Indies are probably top of the moment. We should beat England, South Africa, and Sri Lanka.
You'd hope.
Hopefully, we can sneak a game against the other, because we got to play each of them twice, don't we?
No, one game against each of them, and then top two go through. So it's cutthroat. Like this game Saturday night, it's the first game of the tournament proper, if you will, against South Africa. It's must win because if we drop that, then you've got to go out and beat most likely England and the West Indies and make sure you don't have any slip up against Sri Lanka and the other minnow to come through. It's going to be a tough one, boys.
Yeah, and like I said before, India looking very dominant. Should be India, New Zealand get out of their group. Yeah, I would think, against Afghan and Pakistan already in there.
I wouldn't rule out Pakistan. Definitely New Zealand would be the second favourite in that group. Monks, have you got any odds up there for the tournament itself? And mind you, keep in mind, if we go through an Australian betting agency like Sportsbet, expect to get shorter odds than maybe we should be thinking of in this tournament proper. India the favourites?
Just keep on chatting amongst yourselves.
India should be favourites, I would have thought.
From that warm-up game, they did it very, very easy. The depth that they've got is unbelievable. And on top of it all, we're coming through the IPL, which has just been played in the Emirates, into this World Cup that's going to be played in the Emirates. Everyone's going to have their eye in for the Indians. It's theirs to lose, I think. I think England could do a little bit of damage, but New Zealand maybe is smoky, but I don't see us bothering them. And you can't rule out the defending champions and two-time T20 champs in the West Indies.
Well, according to this, in a warm-up game against New Zealand, we beat them 2 days ago.
Yeah, we did. That was the warm-up before the India game.
Yeah.
Again, grain of salt, warm-up game, etc., etc.
That's it. Yeah. So I got the odds up here. So you're right. India are favourite at $3. England are second at $4.50. Obviously, with India being favourites, that's pushed New Zealand out to $7. And as you mentioned, there's probably a little bit of favouritism here. Well, actually, not much. Not much there. Aussies and West Indies are both at $7.50 at the moment. Just sitting outside.
On paper and past performances, I wouldn't have us equal with the West Indies. So maybe a little bit of bias there. But look, can't wait, boys. It's been 5 years since the last T20 World Cup. Obviously pushed back a year because of COVID.
Can I ask a quick question? What do you think of this team from that warm-up game? They had Warner and Finch open. Marsh was 3. Steve Smith was 4. Steiners 5. Wade, Agar, Stark, Inglis, and Zampa, I think, was the last one.
Maxwell played, did he not?
No, not in the New Zealand game that I'm looking at.
I think bring up the Indian team because I believe he played in that India team. I think, Warner, Finch. I think Marsh will bat 3, given his recent form. I think Smith will bat 4. I think it'll be Maxwell, Stoinis. 7 is interesting. I think they will go with Wade, but Inglis will be knocking down the door. And then the bowlers, Zampa definitely picks himself in the short format. And then you'd think probably Cummins, Hazelwood, and maybe Ashton Agar, I think will be our starting 11. Yeah,
so against India, we had Warner, Finch, Marsh, Smith. Warner and Finch got 9. Marsh got 0. Smith, 57 for him. Maxwell, Steiners, Wade. Then it looks like Cummins, Agar, Richardson, Stark, and Zampa.
Extended team.
Extended team, of course, for the warm-up.
I think it pretty much picks itself outside of the last bowler and maybe the keeper. But I think Cricket Australia always shows faith in Matt Wade. So I think expect Wade to be behind the stumps come Saturday night.
So Rahul, Sharma, Yadav, and Panya covered our run chase by the fall.
Yeah, they're stacked. They're stacked. They're very a very, very good white ball team. Be very surprised if they don't make the final, if not win the whole thing. Let's move back to some domestic cricket, boys, with the Ashes, not too far away. We had 2 games in the Sheffield Shield. Queensland drew with South Australia. The big one to take out of this, it was a second innings score, but Usman Khawaja, a massive ton, 174. And with Will Pucovski, unfortunately, copping another one in the nets and showing, again, some concussion symptoms, there's a big question mark around the opening position for the Ashes. Usman definitely putting his hand up. Marcus Harris will be considered. Joe Burns. Look, it's open slather, really, if Pucovski will be out. As well, we're 2 months away, so there's no reason why Pucovski can't get fit. Wishing him all the best there.
Can I just clarify? Looking at it, it doesn't look like I can't find news for another concussion, and still they're talking about his 10th one that he suffered against Victoria 2 weeks ago. And I think the news keeps cycling it through that, hey, he's got, concussion, whether that's a bit of a beat up there. But anyway, the story goes that Will's trying to get back within the next month. So he may miss a game late November, but whether he can get back in that side, essentially having no cricket in that time frame, is what I think we're discussing. Potentially, we'll have to see. Again,
Sean, then that leads us into the Tasmania WA game. Tasmania did get a win there. Sean Marsh looking okay, didn't score a ton, but scored a few runs. The most interesting thing out of this one was Cam Bancroft channeling his inner Pujara and making a solid 11 off 215 balls there. Mate, if I face 215 balls in a season, I'm pretty happy with that. So hats off to Cam Bancroft, just putting up the brick wall there. Unfortunately, it wasn't enough to see WA home, Tasmania getting the bickies there. And then a big story coming through in the last 24 hours in the retirement from all international cricket of James Pattinson. He's only 31 years of age, a bloke who, look, if his body didn't really give out, may have played 70 to 100 tests or more. Plagued by back injuries, and also one of those guys that was just sort of on the cusp, in this era where since Cummins has been healthy and you've got Stark and Hazelwood there, very difficult team to bust into. Wishing him all the best. I sent you boys a little video as to what his thoughts are going forward. He's got a little 2-year-old girl who essentially with COVID protocols and travelling, he got to see very little of her first year of life. Doing a carpentry apprenticeship. He's hanging up the boots from international cricket, but wouldn't be surprised to see him go around a T20, kind of, make a bit of coin. The bloke deserves it. I think, Monks, if you wouldn't mind having his career stats there, did he play 20-odd tests, 26 tests, something like that?
Yeah, so his international career spanned from 2011 through to 2020. He played 21 international tests.
So
yeah, I suppose so. Yeah, took 81 wickets. His best innings was 5 for 27.
Yeah. What's that average? 25, 26 with the ball?
Something like that, yeah.
Look, who'd want to be a fast bowler? I mean, you got this guy, Jimmy Anderson, who is an absolute freak of nature, a Tom Brady, if you will, of just being able to just keep going and going and going. And then you see so many stories of these guys where, and most often they're back, but other areas that just give out, especially in today's cricketer. For some reason, I don't know if it is what that, there's a little bit more cricket being played, But some of the quicks just just injury ravaged. Jason Behrendorff comes to mind, of a guy that missed a lot of cricket, and even Pat Cummins. We see how well he's playing these days, but he debuted at 18 and then missed a good 3 or 4 years through injuries. So, mate, who'd want to be one? Look, my social cricket team likes to say he looks like Tarzan and bowls like Jane. About myself, I definitely have the frame of a fast bowler, just none of the talent. I'd definitely rather sit down the other end these days. It's pretty hard bowling 8 overs in a Sunday social setting, let alone bowling 30 to 40 in a Test match.
Yeah. I think you hit the nail on the head with Patterson as well. Every time he kind of looked like he was going to push his way into the side, like if Stark was struggling, he very much would fill that role that Stark had. Then, an injury would creep up, whether it was hammies, knees, back, etc. Like the typical fast bowler stuff. He just couldn't stay healthy and couldn't cement his spot where he would have, like over that 10-year career, could have played the 100, as you said. Sort of averaging like roughly 2 a year, which I think ended up being like he'd play a couple series in a year, be injured, be out a year or two, have to work his way back inside.
3 years, yeah. And as well, an underrated part of his game, pretty sneaky good with the bat. There's a few instances of him, I think he scored a few tons for Victoria, great cricket, like just wielding it. So, yeah, hats off to James Pattinson on an excellent career and wishing him all the best moving forward.
Definitely.
And with that, I think that's cricket for this week, which means we need to go. We'll change some continents. Let's go to America and talk about the NFL week 7 coming up, not 6. Week 7 news coming up. Well, we'll start with the news and then we'll get into the preview. Sorry, I fucked that up. So we'll start with the NFL news from the week leading into the week 7 preview. I think we got to start by talking about the ongoing rumors with Deshaun Watson. He's not on an exemption list, I don't think, anywhere. He's just a third quarterback, not doing anything regularly inactive. For the Texans, of course, he wants to be traded. Some chat about, it sounds like the Finns are very hot and heavy, want him. Again, rumors saying that, hey, that's just all bullshit. There's nothing's happening. So whether one side's trying to leak it, leverage, whatever. Sounds like if that's the case, Tua's going to be on the move, whether that means he goes to Tennessee or not to Tennessee, to the Texans, to Houston, or whether he gets, in a 3-team deal, gets moved somewhere else. Who knows? He looked okay on the weekend for his first game back.
He did.
But hey, if you do you got to be worried that your team wants to trade a quarterback that's got 22 sexual assault cases against him over you. So
might be a liability.
Yeah, and it's obviously this is heated up again, and I think I talked about this a couple of weeks ago. Like some of these teams might start having those conversations if a guy's hurt. Hey, he might be playing. Sean Watson could be playing for that team next week. Trade deadline's now a week and a half away, I think it is, isn't it? So if they're going to make it happen this year, it's going to be soon. Whether the league knows some other stuff about the legal cases, because I think none of them get heard till November and then into January. Like it's going to be another 3 months before they all get sorted, on whether they get settled or not, because they're all. I don't think they're criminal cases. They're public suing or something. I can't remember the exact legal terms for the US, but there's a lot out there. Obviously, it sounds like the owners have either signed off on it or allowing this conversation to happen. Whether it happens or not, it's Watson's a top 5 quarterback if he's healthy and playing, so he adds a lot to the Finns if that's really what they want to do. There's not much more you can comment on it, really. What are your boys' thoughts?
It's just weird how it's really ignited again in the last few days. Like a few weeks ago, it was kind of like, nah, like rule out this season, and now it's kind of like, oh yeah, like it's kind of happening. Is it a media beat up? Probably. That's what I kind of wonder.
I think it's leverage. So, but they're probably having this conversation in the background, and then either side's leaking their part of it to try and generate leverage to potentially push through the deal before the deadline. It's usually what happens. So,
The other thing that's probably less football related and more just an anecdote, but we saw the crucifixion of John Gruden last week regarding look, some less than savoury emails. Let's be honest, but a guy going, whilst this is all going on, I know innocent until proven guilty. It just seems a little on the nose to me that's the world that we live in. Maybe people do get a little bit of the death by media, in regards to Gruden. But who knows? We'll see. A lot can happen in a week. So maybe in the next pod, we may be talking about Deshaun Watson playing somewhere else other than Houston.
Well, even if the trade goes through, the league's got to okay him to play. So since the Texans aren't playing him, they're just like, we'll just wait. We're not doing anything. If they want to consider playing him, they then might go, well, hey, he's now on the exemption list. He can't be allowed to play until his legal matters get sorted out. Who knows? If you're finding masseuses on Tinder, you've probably got issues. So we'll have to see how everything goes out there.
It's unfortunate. There's plenty of short films on the internet that I've watched which went exactly like that, and it all went okay for me. I just managed to keep it in that viewing of the short films. But on a more serious note, have you heard any more on this? Anything to add regarding Deshaun Watson?
No, not really. I think you sort of hit the nail on the head. I think a lot of it's sort of just a back and forth, trying to find some leverage at some point. I think Houston still reckons they're going to be able to get at least 3 first-round picks for him.
3? Yeah, is that what you're hearing? 3?
Yeah, that's what their asking price is.
Yeah, that was their minimum, and then they wanted something else to top it off. So whether that's players or picks on top of it.
If you're Miami, do you think that Deshaun Watson is worth 3 first-round picks when you've got Tua, who's still very young in his career, sure, as some big injury concerns, that horrific hip injury that we saw coming into the league? Would you rather Tua or Watson and 3 first-rounders gone? What would you take?
Well, I think they'd probably prefer Justin Herbert at this point. But
hindsight is 2020.
Yeah. Well, Deshaun, you got to remember, Deshaun Watson's he's a top 5 quarterback.
Elite, he's an elite quarterback.
He definitely got the talent to do that. Whether he helps that Dolphins team potentially make it to the playoffs, I think they're not that team built ready where they need a quarterback, and then to lose 3 first-round picks, probably more picks and another player, they're not going to be able to build that team probably in the next couple of years while Deshaun's there anyway. So I don't think they'll probably play more entertaining and fun football, but I don't think they gain anything winning wise, and their record wise long term. Maybe it's a 2 or 3 game swing for that team, but still that's not playoff worthy, I don't think, for them.
Yeah, well, 3 games isn't worth 3 picks in my opinion. So I believe in Tua Tagovailoa.
Yeah. If he can stay healthy, he's an amazing player. They'll be able to build a team around him. But like before the season started, I thought it was all just conspiracy theories that the Houston were trying to devalue him or something and just offload him because it's probably too expensive. But then it sort of snowballed into what it is now. So I probably don't really have too much more to say about it.
Yeah, we'll see how it plays out in the court of law. Outside of that, we could definitely talk about draft picks and what you'd rather, but we'll leave the legal stuff up to the people that know what they're talking about.
Mm-hmm.
That's it.
So the next kind of interesting story, and I think we just wanted to cover, it's not really a story, we just want to cover anecdote.
Awesome.
With Aaron Rodgers during the week, kind of found out the best way to get around the new taunting rules is instead of taunting other players, just taunt the fans. And I think we saw the Bills Titans game as well. Monks, what was the direct quote we had here for what Rodgers said to the Bears?
I put him on the spot here. So the direct quote was, "I've owned you all my fucking life. I own you. I still own you."
Do we know that's exactly what he said? I was looking at it. I don't have much audio. You can definitely see that he's saying, "I owned you."
Yeah.
Do you think that's word for word what he said?
Yeah.
I'm not sure about the expletive. We have done a few searches and we can at least verify that third party. So yeah, whether that's all in the media just trying to hype this up, who knows? But I mean, his record against Chicago is 21-5. His completion percentage is 66, nearly 67%. He's thrown 57 touchdowns, only 10 interceptions. Yeah, his quarterback rating is 107 against him. So
he's a smart man. He's a smart man. If you can't say it to the defensive back or whoever that you've just torched, you may as well let some of those knucklehead Bears fans know about it. Me as a Packers man, yeah, good on him. A lot spoken about him, and his interest perhaps in the team. This man wants to win this year. You can tell he's still fired up. He hasn't given up just yet. Look, maybe a little bit over the top, perhaps, but
good they've won 5 straight, so it helps.
Good to see him at 37 years of age and still sneaky athletic, running one into the end zone, and it still fucking means a bit to him. So, look, maybe a little bit, more than what was warranted, perhaps, but the Packers are looking pretty good.
Yeah. And today, Tom Brady came out, and I'll stole it from Monks. You, the Tom Brady fan, of course, did congratulate Aaron Rodgers on his ownership of the Bears today. It's good to hear that you've taken a stake in the Bears. Congrats on that. They can join your Milwaukee Bucks ownership as well. So I think that was pretty funny.
That's it, yeah. You mentioned...
you go.
Oh, yeah, you mentioned that about rushing touchdown. That is his only his second rushing touchdown against him. Obviously, quarterbacks don't rush for touchdowns too often, but yeah, that's probably a pretty good point of his in regards to that game, and yeah, celebrating it, I guess.
Let's fucking go. Packer 5-1. The Bears will get stuck into them in a second. They're 3-3. I think they're absolute pretenders. A more serious story here, I suppose. We do.
Scary, I think, is probably the.
Yeah, scary.
Yeah.
We talk about concussion, but we haven't really touched on immediate, long-term injuries, and definitely the Darryl Taylor one was quite concerning. But also we saw Taylor Lewan both leave on carts, both sort of cop one, to the top, the crown of the helmet, right on top. And you do kind of forget that the short-term consequences of this sport can be pretty dire. We saw Taylor Lewan, as he was getting carted off, give the thumbs up and a little shucker. He's an absolute character. Everyone was chanting his name. Sean, what was your take on this? The game's got stopped for quite some time. What did you think?
Yeah, well, I think it's not being overly, well, they are being overly precautious, but for good reason, because both of them have been injuries to the crown, the top of the helmet, where essentially, if you watch the video, the head compresses and your neck compresses, so you're compressing the spine. So of course they're worried about you compressing your spine and stuff getting nicked, or disc getting moved in place they shouldn't be, which ends up to could lead to disability, and of course losing feeling in your extremities. Of course they're worried about the concussions, but they're also worried about that. So that's why they take the precaution. Let's strap them down. Let's not move them. Let's not move the head. Put them on the cart. We'll send them off. Get them all the scans they need. Make sure they're all good. The Darren Taylor is a bit coincidence. Both of them got Taylor in the name, but Darren Taylor, he took the first one and looks pretty bad. Taylor Lewan, sorry, his one didn't look as bad because it was he was falling, like coming down on the. I think Derrick Henry had made a run and he's gone through. He's getting tackled. He's coming down on the pile essentially, and he's just contacted the hip. But obviously, stinger, I'd say, didn't feel real good, and he's like, "Hey, I've got a mad stinger down my body after doing that. It doesn't feel real great." And they're like, "Don't move. We'll strap you down and we'll get this all checked out, make sure you're all good." By counts for both of them, they've been checked afterwards and are both okay and are going to be okay going forward with no major damage, which is of course excellent. But it's a bit scary, and it just puts into the focus like two within 2 days, having very similar circumstances, very similar breaks in the games, as Pep said, and to be strapped down, carted off, rushed away in ambulances. It does bring home that, hey, this is one of the most dangerous and gladiatorial sports out there. So
Yeah,
that's it. Yeah. No, I remember watching the replay of this Seahawks Steelers game, and when Darrell Taylor went down, I immediately just thought, oh no, like you think a few years back with Ryan Shazier, and I immediately thought it was like something had happened to a Steelers player. I'm like, not again, but I mean, it was Darrell Taylor, and still not the situation you want to be in, but yeah, both teams got around him, and yeah, Steelers definitely know what's up with that sort of injury and helped take every precaution with that, which was really good to see. And yeah, good to see that both guys got out of there relatively safe.
Yeah.
Moving forward, we have seen an assistant anti-vax coach getting fired earlier in the year. That was a Minnesota Vikings bloke, but we've seen the first head coach lose his job due to being an anti-vaxxer. Washington State's head coach Nick Rolovich has copped the axe for his anti-vax stance. Sean, did you read much about this? What did you say?
Yeah, well, I think this first of setting a precedent, I think, is kind of what we're talking about here. Nick very much was trying to get a religious exemption for not needing to get the vaccination, but that I don't believe cleared with the NCAA. So the Washington State football program basically had to make a decision of what they're going to do, and this is kind of the circumstance which I think not just within football, within sports, probably within life going forward with work. If this sentiment is put in there compulsory, and you're refusing, if you can't get that exemption, then essentially you're picking your beliefs over your job at this point, and this kind of has come through that way. And yeah, Nick has been unfortunately been on the receiving end as one of the first of more of a high profiled position to get the axe because of his anti-vax stance.
Yeah, we mentioned, or I mentioned Kyrie Irving earlier in the show. It's always, I don't know, I'm obviously very pro-vaccine. Everyone here is all vaccinated, but you can have a bit of a laugh sometimes about it. But it is a weird precedent, I think, as well, saying that that's it. You've got to be vaccine or out the door. Whether or not in sports, that that could be a whole podcast with much smarter people.
Wait till we get to talk about the AFL.
Yeah.
We'll cover that a little bit.
Something that's coming in. It is a weird time that we live in, where someone's views around this can cost them a job. But yeah, it'll be interesting, and I can't imagine that this is the first instance that we'll see in the college game of a quite prominent person losing their job, or we like to talk about all sports. So I think we'll see a few of these moving forward.
So, yeah, and you did mention precedent there, so I think it looks like Nick is going to sue Washington State discriminatory and vindictive behaviour. So yeah, I mean, and like taking it outside of the sports podcast as well, this affects everyone everywhere, really, this sort of behaviour on both sides of the argument for the vaccine. So yeah, definitely something probably to keep our eyes on outside of the sporting world, but yeah, huge ramifications across all sports codes as well.
I did forget we were talking about an American, so of course that's the only reasonable way to go about things. You probably don't see it as much here in Australia. Anyways, news aside, boys, we had another awesome week 6 in the NFL. Monday Night Football, crazy, with the Titans knocking off the Bills. We saw a few overtime games, a couple of upsets. This weekend, it kind of shapes up a little bit different because there's a few games where there are some heavy favourites, especially in the late Sunday games. There could be a few bloodbaths coming up. And a few of the NFL podcasts that I like to listen to have referred to it as Bye-Mageddon. There's a lot of teams on bye this week where
big teams too.
Yeah, big teams. Let's run through it now. So the Bills, they're on a bye, and they got done by the King Henry. He's unbelievable. We'll get to him in a sec. The Cowboys, they're 5-1. They're on a bye. Trevon Diggs has 7 intercepts. The Bolts, I don't know about
you forgot about Diggs' 2 touchdowns before we move on. He's got the same amount of touchdowns as his brother does.
As his brother, yeah, which is pretty wild. And I think the most ever I was reading is Dick the Night Train Lane, 14 intercepts in a season. Look, he's on track to beat that. It would be remarkable if he did. But we might see some kind of modern era record at least in terms of the most intercepts in a year. The Bolts, they had a big time flogging at the hands of the Ravens. We saw a lot of back and forth in our group chat between our resident Ravens fan and our resident Chargers fan. Sean, I wanted to ask you what was going through your head with the title around the video last week. Are the Chargers the best team in football? It seems they're not.
Yeah. Well, I asked it as a question, and they had to go out.
It wasn't a statement. So if it had been the Chargers are the best team in football, full stop,
yeah,
then we could. But the question mark left it open.
Exactly, and Chargers were on the ascendancy, so that was the question. Was, hey, if they go out here and do what the Ravens did to them, then you got to start asking questions like maybe they are, but. As you said, they shit the bed, and we're now here where we're talking about, hey, no, the Chargers are not the best team in the AFC or in football at the moment. They were looking good, and then they played pretty terrible to very bad against the Ravens. So, yeah, out of that conversation for now.
Indeed. The other teams to be on buys this week, the Vikings, they're 3-3. The Steelers are also 3-3. And the Jags, they got off the donut. They broke their 20-game losing streak, which was the second longest in NFL history. And for once, we didn't put on a fucking curse. We all tipped the Jags, and they done us proud in that late field goal there over in London. So they're the teams on buys this week. Look, the Jags, I suppose, James Robinson is big for fantasy implications. The Steelers may be Chase Claypool, Najee Harris, of course. But then the other 4 teams are a number of guys in fantasy that'll be missing this week.
Yeah, big time.
So tomorrow, your team, Denver Broncos, Cleveland Browns, they're both coming off losing streaks. Denver, they won out and they won their first 3 games. Everyone thought, oh, maybe it's Denver's year. And then we realised it was against the Giants, the Jags and the Jets. They've now lost 3 to the Ravens, the Steelers and the Raiders. Sean, did you catch much of the game and what did you take out of it in the loss to the Raiders?
Of course I did. And before we talk about Denver football, of course I got to open another drink. So
Drowning something there?
I've got some concerns. I don't think you'd be holding back too much here. What did you think?
Well, I said it in the last 2 weeks. I've got real concerns we won't win a game in the next 8 weeks in the next 2 months. We're currently on track, unfortunately. Yeah. Fuck, I can't even remember who we lost to last week. The Raiders. Raiders come off they come into Mile High with no head coach off the week that they had, and they absolutely pantsed us. Yeah. I think I said it as well. Like the teams just doesn't look prepared, which was kind of my issue. And now we come up against a Browns team. Well, what do we have? We had Steelers that were all banged up, and Roethlisberger's cooked. They can't pass the ball deep and score points. What do? They pass the ball deep and score points on us.
Yeah.
No Gruden, no head coach. They're going to come in struggling. The Raiders, what do they go out to? They beat the pants off us. Now we've got Browns. No Mayfield. He's out injured. We got Case Keenum, who I shouted a beer out at the start. No Chubb. No Hunt either.
No Dove Landry, Odell
Yeah.
Beckham. There's a question mark around. Will he
banged
be
up. Their secondary's banged up. Their defensive line, of course, is excellent. Their defense has been struggling. That they got put to the sword a bit by the Cards last week because of that. But having said all that, Denver should potentially be competitive in this. Could even win this football game. But if you follow the history of the last 3 weeks, then no, they'll come out of this game underprepared, get shit pumped, and Fangio will get fired on Saturday. So that's the Saturday our time, so Friday morning in the States. So that's what I think is going to come out of this. So,
as a fan, what are your thoughts around Fangio? I don't think he's done too much wrong.
Well, I think I said it last week. He's a defensive, minded coach. He calls defensive plays. He runs that defense. And that defense has been shit pumps, letting deep balls through. And, they've got the highest paid secondary in the league, and they're letting guys get behind them. There's obviously a conflict of strategy, whatever there. And the offense through second and third quarters can't do anything. I think, got the highest worst third down conversion rate in the league. So, they're really struggling coaching-wise. So they're potentially there could be changes coming there if they don't get a win against a banged up Browns team. Of course, the Broncos are banged up. We had 2 rookie inside linebackers starting for us in the Raiders at the end of that game. Lost Alex Johnson to a torn pec, or don't have Jewel. Baron Browning, who was third round pick this year, had a concussion, probably not going to pay. So they got a 5th round pick and I think an undrafted guy playing inside linebacker for us. And they just Raiders ran all over us in the 4th quarter to make sure they got that game. So we walk into a Browns team that likes to run without their 2 running backs.
Without everyone. If there's any game to bounce back, it's facing this Cleveland team who has just been absolutely decimated.
Yeah.
I'd like to know your tip. Do you think, can they go to Cleveland and beat this team without arguably their 3 best players, or maybe 5 best players?
I went 50-50, and I did pick the Broncos in this because they should win this game, like with all those reasons you just listed. I just think, following history, they'll start off slow in the first quarter and get shit pumped in the second and third quarter and try to chase in the fourth and get some garbage points. So I can see it going either way, but you couldn't be confident going into Cleveland, into the dog pound, and getting a win coming off the 3 weeks that they've had. Teddy 2 gloves through 3 picks, of course, and also got hit 17 times like they owe.
17.
Yeah, he hobbled off the stage after the press conference because he was that banged up. So trying to play, I'd expect Drew Lock's probably going to play after the first quarter because I don't think Teddy's going to last very long. Myles Garrett, I think, leads the league in sacks currently. So, yeah, again, it all leads to Denver potentially winning this game. They're probably not. So don't back what I'm saying. Monks will have odds to back it up. If anything, if they here's the bet. If you can bet on head coaches getting fired, if Denver loses game, Fangio's done within a week. That's what I think.
I'm less confident on Denver winning this game, but I'm more confident on Fangio keeping his job. I think a lot of it has been unforeseen circumstances, but I'm going the Browns here. I still think that defense at home in the dog pound might be able to get this done with the replacements, if you will, the Keanu Reeves led offense coming in here to look. If they don't turn the ball over, I think their defense is good enough to hold up and get a win here.
Yeah, and everyone forgets that Chase Keenum's coming in here for a revenge game. Last time he played for Denver, he was overthrown DT for a touchdown to win a game and take us to the finals over the Chiefs, I believe. But anyway.
An absolute journeyman, Case Keenum. I had a little look. I'd kind of forgotten how many teams he's played for. It's about 6, I think. Had times with the Rams, the Vikings, the Broncos, maybe a few more than that. But an absolute journeyman. Anyways, Monks, if you wouldn't mind the odds for this game and your tip, it will be the deciding tip.
Yep. So no markets at the moment for Fangio getting fired, but we'll keep a close eye on that.
That might be a call-up bet, that one.
Yeah, that's it. No, yeah, I've gone Browns as well at home. Even with the lineup they've got, I think they'll still just edge the win there. The bookies reckon the same as well. They are favourites at $1.79. Broncos are out at $2.03. So still, again, not too confident.
Probably under.
Yep. We've got a line of 40.5. Sorry, no. Total match points, 40.5. And because I said it, the line is 2.
Yeah, he probably wouldn't be touching that line. I don't mind the overs there. Obviously,
40 is low in the NFL.
Yeah, 40 is low, and they're obviously taking into account that this is a backup offense for but 40 is very low. Alas, let's move forward. A bunch of interesting games Sunday, the early window, and possibly the most interesting is this AFC North matchup between the 4-2 Bengals and the 5-1 Ravens. The Bengals obviously got the job done quite comfortably against the Lions. Did you boys see they had Jamar Chase all mic'd up for him catching passes from Joe Burrow? And Burrow goes to him. He actually underthrew him a little bit on this as well, I think. You see that big blue thing over there? That's the end zone. And Jamar was giving him a little bit back. Obviously, college teammates at LSU. And speaking of, Joe Mixon has been firing. This Bengals team, boys, they're 4-2. Do we think they're a playoff team at the moment?
They might go into the playoffs, but defensively, I don't think they're going to go very far. They're probably a year away of adding defensive talent and maybe 1 or 2 pieces. And then I think they're going to be scary. Like Lamar's added an extra dimension to it, and he's an excellent team player. I think, was it Kareem Hunt that had that run, and then Chase came over from the other side and blocked the safety, laid him out so that Hunt would get in there for the touchdown.
Wouldn't be Kareem Hunt because he plays for the Cleveland Browns.
Sorry, I'm confusing orange teams. My bad. It wasn't Mixon either. It was fuck. Couldn't tell off the top of my head.
Chris Evans, the backup.
Maybe. But either way, the point was Chase is getting across there to put on big blocks. To get guys in, playing the team sport side of it. You see plenty of receivers, especially on run plays, doing the bare minimum while they get ready for the next play.
What about the Ravens, boys? They're 5-1. They are, by record, the best team in the AFC. An interesting little tidbit from last week. They had 3 rushing touchdowns, and the guys that ran in, Latavius Murray, Le'Veon Bell, Devonta Freeman, have all been an afterthought, I guess, in the last few years in the league, but they're all former Pro Bowlers. Then there is a log jam after them in the AFC, obviously with the Bills losing. What do we think is going to be the result of this game? I imagine the Ravens are probably heavy favourites, but I'd imagine it'll be close. I'm going the Baltimore Ravens, but I wouldn't be. Look, they dismantled the Chargers last week, but I wouldn't be super surprised if the Bengals can keep in touch. What do we reckon?
Yeah, and my concern always with the Ravens where their defense is currently, and going into that Chargers game, that was my concern. But then they went out there and shit pumped them. So I think the Bengals are a worse team than what the Chargers are. So I think I picked the Ravens. I think the Ravens can get it done here and keep going, keep rolling. Rashad Bateman back for them. Slow start, of course, in his first game back, but he looks like a talent. Another weapon. I think Sammy Watkins might be hurt though, so a bit of straight replacement there.
Yeah,
but they're a good team. They got an MVP playing quarterback for them, so they're going to be in games. And with the culture, the mindset that the Ravens play football with, John Harbaugh gets them to play, like they're always going to be playoff bound. I reckon they definitely have that feeling about them. They're always that team that's going to be there and thereabouts, and they're putting together another excellent season. Need to run towards that playoff in that Super Bowl.
Monks?
Yeah. You guys pretty much said it all. To that, I have also gone the Ravens. They are favourites at $1.35. Bengals are out at $3.20. So it's looking like some of the shorter odds for the week. And we've got total match points of 47.
I wouldn't be surprised if we go over. I think this
that's
might be a little bit of a shootout. The Bengals defense has been lackluster, but that young offense is starting to get there. I'd be tempted to go over there. But 3 Ravens tips here. Moving forward, we've got the Panthers going to East Rutherford to take on the Giants. The Panthers, much like the Broncos, started off 3-0 and then have lost 3 since then. And also, a bit like the Broncos, maybe the teams that they beat to get to 3-0 weren't that impressive. The Jets and Texans were 2 of them, and the Saints, who, maybe a reasonable side, but definitely
not cold at the moment.
Yeah, well, definitely 2 easy wins there. They only just lost last week against the Vikings. It was a wild finish to this one. It was I was up early here in Australia, and it ran much later than any of the other early window games. We saw a wild final drive. Sam Darnold had the boys driving down the field. They got a 2-point conversion to force overtime, and then the defense just couldn't get a stop, and the Vikes got the win there. Christian McCaffrey, he got moved to injured reserve this week, so this hamstring injury seems to be a little bit more serious than first thought. Means the man with the best name in the NFL, Chuba Hubbard, gonna be rolling through and taking the bulk of the carries for the Panthers. The Giants, on the other hand, they got dismantled by the Rams. They are banged up. Danny Dimes played his worst game of the season so far. Saquon, I imagine, is no bueno for this week. And Kadarius Toney, who showed a little bit a week ago, he had 3 catches on the opening drive and then suffered an ankle injury, I believe. Do we have any news on Kadarius Toney? I think that the only starting skill guy out of their offense is Sterling Shepard that's left. Everyone else is banged up.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and from what I can find, they're not planning to put him onto injured reserve, so they're talking about whether it'd go or not. So I don't think he'd play this week if that is the case.
So possibly a more serious ankle sprain, but not enough to warrant injured reserve. Boys, what do we reckon here? Look, you can't rule out the Giants, but I imagine it's 3 Panthers.
Yeah, Panthers. I'd be actually, now that I think about it, Stephen Gilmore might play this week.
Yeah, that'd be interesting. Obviously, they picked him up cheap, a 6th round pick for the former defensive player of the year. You'd imagine Steph Gilmore wouldn't be far off.
He's in practice, but
can't tell.
Can't say. They're easing him back into practice, but whether he'll play or not in this one, I don't know.
They might
practice.
They might say the Giants have got fuck all receivers. Monkey's actually lining up in the slot for the Giants this week. So have a week off, Steph, and we'll see you next week.
Yeah, he's still on the PUP, so he hasn't come off that yet. So I don't think he's in back into training, but he hasn't officially been added to the roster, I don't think.
3
Panthers for mine.
Yeah, three Panthers there. They are favourites at $1.63. The Giants are out at $2.30 at the moment, and we've got a line of 43.
I'll tell you what, $1.63 is a little bit better value than I had expected. Obviously, coming off that 3-game losing streak, I just don't see how the Giants can do it with the amount of injuries that they've had. And Danny Dimes took some licks the last few weeks as well. Who knows how he's going to pull up. $1.60 there seems pretty juicy for me.
So that leads into probably another awesome AFC matchup, and that's with the Kansas City Chiefs taking on the Tennessee Titans. 3-3-4-2 there. Chiefs, of course, were too good for the Washington football team in the second half. did have to come back in that game, I think, a little bit.
Yeah, they did.
Darren Williams also looking like a very good fantasy option for those out there over CEH because he, of course, is on injury reserve, I believe. I think he's going to miss quite a while. Did get 2 tutters in here, of course, gets the goal line work. And an interesting kind of fact throughout CEH's career, he hasn't scored as many points fantasy-wise as Darryl Williams did last week. So
one game, yeah.
One game.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Look, CEH is a bit of an enigma. He's got all the talent in the world. He's in that Andy Reid run offense. You'd expect him to just be putting up bulk numbers each week. I don't know if it's just he's maybe a little bit undersized. They don't favour him around the goal line, whereas Darryl Williams has got that slightly bigger body. I think that Darryl Williams is a more fantasy relevant running back at the Chiefs than Clyde Edwards-Helaire is. We did mention the game last week against the football team. The Chiefs just did not look like themselves in that first half, and in that second half, they look like the fucking Chiefs. So it'd be interesting to see which team rocks up this weekend. And then the Titans coming off a huge upset against the Bills on Monday Night Football. Another awesome Monday Night Football game. And Derrick Henry, he's the king. Look, he's the king. He's king by nature. We were having a chat in our NFL group chat this week. He's $31 at the moment to be the MVP of the NFL. That is mind-boggling to me. Look, we're seeing some awesome play from the likes of Kyler Murray, from the likes of Dak Prescott, from the likes of Josh Allen. But when you think about the most valuable player, you have to take into consideration the most valuable to their team. And Derrick Henry, he just does things that other people can't do. He's a 250-pound, 6'4" running back. He should be playing outside linebacker, and he runs faster than anyone else. And everyone knows the big stiff arm from last year where it was on Josh Norman, a former Pro Bowl corner. This week, he's done the same stiff arm to Mario Addison, a defensive end. He's putting defensive ends 3 yards back, boys. He's just built different. And for mine, through the first 6 weeks of the NFL, he's my MVP. It'll be interesting to see if he can keep it up. I think he's got 10 rushing touchdowns. I think he's had one game where he's had less than 100 rushing yards.
Yeah. Is he at 2K yet, Monks?
Pretty much. No, not yet. He's sitting at 783. Nick Chubb is second there at 523. So he's almost 2 games ahead now.
Chubb missed last week. So.
He did.
Ingham missed this week, so Chubb's banged up. But yeah, Henry's so clear.
That's it. He's,
as you said, averaging over 100 a game. So
yeah, 130 a game.
His post-contact, I know I said it last week, but I'll reiterate it. His post-contact yards, if they were a running back, would be 3rd in the NFL. Post-contact. It's unbelievable. I was showing my wife some videos of him working out with his shirt off during the week. And No, she was less interested than I was. And I was just thinking, there's a lot of chat around government surveillance and what's going on with what you're watching on your phone. And I think that a lot of the videos that I seem to be elite athletes working out with their shirt off. So, look, nothing wrong with that. But if the government is watching, just don't want them to get the wrong idea.
So if we roll back to this game, my concerns still with the Chiefs are their defense. They're just not at the level they have been in the past, and their offensive line still struggling, which doesn't bode overly well coming up against the Titans. Wouldn't surprise me if Derrick Henry again gets 30 touches and 200+ yards as he runs all over the Chiefs defense. Would that be enough to score enough points? Hard to say. This could be a high-scoring one. But I think, what did I pick? I picked Kansas. I did pick Kansas City Chiefs.
Well, I'm being a pussy here too. I'm going to go Kansas City. I think the Mahomes factor in their offense, but look, I've just been pumping up the tires of, in my mind, the best player in the NFL. It wouldn't surprise me if they just go say, "Hey, King, here's 35 carries. Here's the rock. Go run for 150 on this pretty ordinary defense and get us another home win."
Yeah. Well, the question is, can Henry put up 40 points to battle that Mahomes-led offense over there?
And I tell you what, when they don't run the ball, the passing game looks pretty so-so. They got AJ Brown going a little bit in the second half. Julio Jones had that that was a Madden catch, one of those. Yeah, Madden glitches where you just go on. It's normally the computer doing it against you. You're just going, what the fuck? Like that's not a real catch. Julio had that ridiculous sideline catch. But when they go to throw the ball, they don't look that impressive. Yeah, hard one to pick. I'm going the Chiefs. Monks?
Yeah. And just to finish that off, because Julio did injure his hamstring again in that game, and AJ Brown did finish. AJ Brown, I said it right. Did finish that game, but both didn't practice Wednesday, whether that's rest day for both of them. But they are banged up, so they are very much relying on Henry at the moment.
Mm-hmm.
I actually reckon the Titans are probably going to be favourites in this, but I'd be interested to see what the odds are, Monks.
Oh yeah, just get straight into it. So Chiefs, I've gone Chiefs. Chiefs are favourites, $1.43. Titans are out at $2.86. Yeah.
And if you want a good bet, the Titans there, that's a good bet.
What's the line and what's the overs? Because Titans with a line and overs seems interesting.
Yeah, if total match points isn't 80, I'm definitely taking it.
Okay, total match points is 78. Sean is taking it.
That's it. Yeah. Well, yeah. I mean, we've just put the. No, wait. Did we put the curse on them?
Yeah, we all picked the Chiefs.
We picked Chiefs. So yeah, we just put the curse on the Chiefs
and win this.
That's it. So total match points 57.5.
That is a lot.
It's a lot, but this could be a 40-40 kind of game. Like that's what you think it'll be. With the Titans will be able to score points in this Chiefs defense, and Mahomes will have to chase. And what did that Bills Tennessee game do? That did 70 plus. So
yeah. I took an alternate line on that. I was a bit scared because it was about 50. So I took an alternate and it was like 44, and I had it like at the start of the third quarter. So I was going, yeah, baby, let's. Obviously lost the multi, but I got that leg.
That's and yeah, the line on this one, you mentioned that you reckon they'll score 40 each. The line is 4.5, so yeah, pretty close to going tap for score.
What were the Chiefs? Were they $1.40? Did you say?
$1.43.
That's ridiculous. That's from the football that we've seen, that makes no sense. So I don't mind having them slight favourites, but $1.43, no bueno.
Yeah.
I tell you, it should be $1.43 or shorter. Is the Green Bay Packers? They have the Washington football team at home at Lambeau. The football team, we did mention, started well against the Chiefs. They didn't score in the second half. And their defense is the worst defense in football, boys. They've conceded the most points through 6 rounds. They were highly touted coming into the season. They're not living up to the expectation. And on offense, they've been so-so. Sean, you own Antonio Gibson in fantasy. Did he go out in this game? And do we know that his status moving forward?
He has been playing, but he's playing through shin fractures. So
he's got fractured shin. Okay.
Yeah. So exactly. So he was like, "Holy fuck! Why are we playing through a fractured shin?" He's been doing that for 2 weeks. But I think they had a further MRI on that shin this week. No results. They haven't explained what came out of that or not. Hasn't been training during the week. I think the question is, has those fractures been getting worse? They obviously must be just like small stress fractures, which they can monitor and play through. But if it flares up or it gets worse, then of course he then sits out. So I don't think it matters in this, because usually game scripts with the Washington football team, they will go to JD because they're going to pass the ball more, and he's their preferred receiving back. And considering the Packers will probably score 20 points on them in the first quarter, they will be chasing most of this match. So I wouldn't think Gibson's going to get much game time, if any at all, for this one, with the way this game is probably going to go. They'll probably shut him down. It wouldn't surprise me, and rest him up for the following week. Because as you said, the Packers on the roll at the moment, won 5 straight. I think they're going to come in here and pump the Washington football team.
Yeah, I'd expect so. I am a Packers fan. Look, less than convincing, I suppose, at Soldier Field in the Aaron Rodgers taunting the crowd game. A little bit of an Andy Reid play, which was interesting. The little shovel pass for an Alan Lazard touchdown. And the backfield is interesting as well, in that AJ Dillon is really starting to take a big role in terms of carries. Fantasy relevance on the cusp, but not quite there. And I said to you boys during the week, I know he didn't have a massive game last week, but Devontae Adams, for mine, is hands down the best receiver in the league. There was a play where they hit him on a corner route. The safety had an open look at him, like could have sent him, in 3 rows back, he could have sent him. And he takes the ball, can barely look at the safety, shrugs him off and ran it to the house. Unfortunately, there was just a nick of paint on his boot that brought him back about 30 yards there. He's a weapon. The Pack are rolling, and I think they go to 6-1 pretty convincingly.
So you're saying he's the reason why I lost fantasy this week? Not scoring that touchdown?
Well, look, there's a lot of shoulda, woulda, coulda involved in fantasy or in gambling or in life. But there was a few blades of grass which perhaps robbed you of 9 points there, I would say. Let's call it a touchdown and 30 yards.
Yeah. No, it's all good.
And I don't think we need to get too stuck into best receivers in the NFL again, but maybe Jondre Hopkins will enter the chat at some point because he's been playing pretty well for the Cards.
Second best receiver in the league,
considering he's banged up. But hey, of course I'm going to back my lad a little bit with that as well.
Had a pretty good game himself, and we'll get to that in a sec. Marks,
give us some odds quickly. Pack should be very short, as Pep said before.
Yeah, that's it. So 3 packs here. They are favourites at $1.25. Washington football team is out at $4. And we've got total match points of 49.5.
Yeah, possibly a little high for my liking there. But look, Packers fan, $1.25, I think that's safe as a house. A game that will probably roll through pretty quick. The Falcons take on the Dolphins. The Falcons coming off the bye, not much to report there. And the Finns, probably the big news that we've already spoken about is them trying to get after Deshaun Watson. They're coming off a loss to the Jags in London. And Miles Gaskin, he'd been my boy last year in fantasy, and I turfed him earlier this year because I'd had enough. I actually traded him for Rondale Moore and then got rid of Rondale Moore the next week. He went absolutely bonkers a week ago against the Bucks. I think he caught 10 passes. He had 30 fantasy points. And then this week, I think he had 5 rushes for 9 yards and maybe a reception. So very hard to get around Miles Gaskin there. Mind you, Tua Tagovailoa looked pretty good. Mike Gesicki, Jalen Waddle getting involved. I think Waddle had 2 touchdowns. And we've got to talk about him again. This fucking dickhead Jarmo, he's made another appearance. I don't know.
This game, yeah, the Jags Dolphins game was in England. We should have expected this, honestly. We should have thought about this.
It hadn't crossed my mind. It hadn't crossed my mind. I was thinking, we probably talk too much about him, old Jarvo. I wonder where he, obviously the media exposure and the YouTube views is getting him to pay off these fines, but the bloke has got to be the slipperiest fucking bloke in the UK because he keeps doing it and he's getting away with it.
Yeah, well, did you see him? I think he was like shaking hands with the refs and the other players because I think it must have been before the game had actually kicked off. but they seemed pretty cool and calm about it before security guard walked out and said, "Come on, Java, we're going back over here."
Fucking Java. Old mate Paddy at the start of the show getting booted from Watford for fuck all, and Java just running around doing what he wants.
That's it.
Perhaps who did you pick in this game? Falcons, Dolphins.
I have gone the Falcons. I think the Dolphins are in all sorts. I don't think the Falcons are a very good football team, but I just nothing about Miami comes to me about a productive, functional football team at the moment. Atlanta for me.
Yeah, I've gone the flip and I've picked the Finns.
Okay.
Based on the Deshaun Watson news, I think Tua's going to come out and have a game. That's my hope.
I like it, Musk. A deciding tip here, which might be a little bit unusual this week, looking at the games to come forward. Your tip and the odds, please.
Yeah, look, I tried tipping a few underdogs last week and nothing went my way. So I've gone Serie and backed the Falcons in as favourites, sitting at $1.74. That being said, Dolphins are only out at $2.10, so still going to be very close. And we've got a total match points of 47.
Don't like the overs there, and that's a little bit more value I would have thought on Atlanta. But look, we've got some awesome matchups in the early window. You know, Chiefs and Titans and Ravens and Bengals. I can't imagine this game. Really plays too much into our interest. And speaking of,
in the next one,
the Jets take on the Patriots. The Jets are coming off the bye. They're 1-4, and hats off to the Pats. They're 2-4, but I think they've been better than that record suggests.
They've pushed some teams.
They've pushed some teams. They pushed
pushed Tampa
in Dallas to overtime. Sean, you were very big on Matt Jones at the start of the year. He's looking like probably the best of the quarterbacks so far.
Yeah, if Lamar Chase wasn't a thing, he'd be offensive rookie of the year, I reckon. But as if you're going to pick up one of the quarterbacks, and he's the one playing the best at the moment.
Definitely.
But, Lamar Chase, I think they've got that reward sewn up after 7 weeks already. If he can continue his current form, he will dominate with his stats if he continues his form towards the end of the year.
Agreed. With the Pats, Damien Harris, he was a question mark going into the game, and he actually ran for 101 yards and a touchdown. And we did mention earlier that the Cowboys have a bye this week, but how good was the finish? Overtime, CeeDee Lamb goes in, gets sort of a little bit of a late nudge, and then just hops up, doesn't blow up, and just gives the old Queen Elizabeth bye-bye. Breaks the hearts of the Pats fans. I don't think that will be the case this week. I think the Pats win this one comfortably, and I believe in them so much. I have the Bills defense in fantasy. The Bills obviously have a bye. I picked up the Pats defense. I think they win this very easily.
Yeah, I've picked Pats as well. I will say I think the Jets may start to turn the corner. I don't think they're going to win a lot of games, but I think they've been better. I think they're starting to turn the corner a little bit to play better football. Don't think they'll win this game though. These two played earlier in the season as well, and Pats won convincingly. So take that as it is. I think they picked off Wilson 4 times, didn't they?
Yeah, that was a game where Zach Wilson threw 4 picks.
Yeah, you stole the Pats defense off me there, Peps. I dropped them the other week to pick up the Jags defense, thinking that they would have a game over in London.
They had a game, but not the defense.
They did okay. Again, shoulda, coulda, woulda with my fantasy team last weekend. I went to try and pick them back up on waiver this week, and you'd already snuck in there. But
I'm really slippery. You got to watch out. I'll go in there in the dark of night. I'll just pick them out.
That's it. Yeah,
helping me too much. I'm 3-3 to be honest.
Hey, you could be on the up and up with that Pats defense. They've won me a couple games early on in the season. With Bill Belichick, they're always bound to Be able to score some points there.
Stop talking about this game for fuck's sake. Give me some odds.
I'm getting there. Pats are favourites at $1.29. Jets are out at $3.66, and the line is 42.5.
Don't like any of it. Let's move on. And I tell you what, boys, these Sunday late games, the last few weeks have been awesome. There's only really one that stands out as possibly being close. We'll get to that in a second. The 0-6 Lions take on the 5-1 Rams. The Lions look pretty ordinary against the Bengals last week. They haven't scored more than 17 points since the first week of the NFL. And the Rams were rolling against the Giants. Cooper Kupp had another big game. Matt Stafford looks good. The thing that I'm interested in here is the line. How much head start do you give the Lions here? It may be in the 20s.
Yeah, and I agree with you, Peps. Rams will win this easy. It is a revenge game for both quarterbacks, of course.
Yeah. That's
I think,
an interesting point. Versus Stafford, yeah.
So that's why I think the Lions probably score some more points in this, because I think Goff's going to probably have a game, but I think the Rams will win. Wouldn't surprise me if it's like 40-something to 20-something final score in this. So potentially overs. But yeah,
I disagree. I don't see the Lions scoring 20 points against this Rams defense. I'd be surprised if they put up 13. That's my view on this one. I can't imagine our tips are any interesting in this one. I'd imagine the whole world is tipping the Los Angeles Rams. Possibly the line and the total match points might be a bit more interesting.
Yep. So 3 Rams here. They are favourites at $1.08. If you're feeling risky, the Lions are out at $8. We have
60. Total. Yeah, Lions gonna be heaps. No idea. Keep going.
I think I'm gonna back by my initial statement. I think the line might be 20.
20?
Yeah.
All right, we'll start with the line. 15.5.
Give that to me all day, every day. Yeah.
$2.
Yeah, 16. 2 touchdowns and a field goal from what the Rams did the Giants last week. Look, the Lions are 0-6. But I don't know if they're the worst team in football. They've, had that Baltimore.
They're not the 0-16 Lions. Let's put it that way.
No, they were
game
very unlucky in the Justin Tucker longest field goal ever. I think they had an overtime loss as well. But yeah, this one's not too close.
No, yeah, and total match points 50.
Oh, yeah, you're backing the Lions to score a few there. I don't know about that one. Probably the most interesting game in terms of competitiveness in the late window is the Eagles and the Raiders. The 2-4 Eagles take on the 4-2 Raiders. The Eagles coming off that loss to the Bucks on Thursday Night Football, but they weren't embarrassed. They had a little bit of a late charge there. And boys, we fucked up. We all tipped the Broncos, I believe, last week. And what we forgot is when a coach gets fired, the team fucking fires up. And the Reds went out.
I don't know what you two were doing, because I told you this. I said, you fire your coach, it's good for one win. I picked heart instead of head. So I don't know what you two were doing.
I don't know, mate. I
was
pulling my dick. I do not know what I was doing. But the Raiders look very, very good. They scored 34 points last week against the Denver Broncos. Derek Carr just keeps rolling, 341 yards, 2 touchdowns. They didn't turn the ball over. What do we see here? Because the Eagles' offense, to be honest, looks very, very ordinary, and the Raiders' offense looks very, very good. I don't know. It's a little bit of a trap game. I've gone the Raiders, but I'm not super confident here.
So based on the theory that I didn't follow last week, they got their win with their head coach fire, so they're due for the loss in this one. Yeah. So now it's got to come in, and so now the reality set in. It was like, we're going to have new staff, new thingy, new whole new coaching staff. Everything's going to change next year. You start thinking about it, and yeah, I'm going the Eagles here to win this.
I like it. Monks, you've got a deciding tip.
Yeah, very interesting. I've trusted, I guess, the process, the system as it is at the moment, and have gone the Raiders. I guess last week I sort of thought that, especially with Waller banged up and or disruption during the week, they weren't going to fire off as much as possible. Favourites $1.61. Eagles are out at $2.32, and we've got total match points of 49.5.
A little bit high scoring for mine. I'm very unsure of this one. It's really the only one in this late window that I'm not really sure which way it goes.
Yeah, final night in this, of course, Zach Ertz was traded to the Cards. And we'll talk about the Cards in a minute.
Yeah,
which probably means Dallas Goedert should get in there and get some more match time and involvement in it. So it's quite interesting that last.
I believe still on the COVID list. I'm not sure if he's active this week, but yeah, you are right. Dallas Goedert, if anyone needs to pick up a tight end in their fantasy league, should be one to consider in the weeks coming. Let's
just to confirm that point. Yes, he, as of Wednesday, which is today, American time, he is still on the COVID list.
He won't be far off. People don't stay on that list for too long. The Bears take on the Bucks. The Bears coming off an L. I don't think they were too bad against the Packers. Their run forward, however, is very, very alarming if you're a fan of the Bears from the Windy City. They have the Bucks this week. Then they've got the 49ers. They go to Pittsburgh, and then they've got Baltimore. So pretty tough run ahead. Khalil Herbert was pretty good in the absence of David Montgomery. We were just talking about COVID lists. Is Damian Williams off the COVID list? He's still on.
Yep, still
on.
on.
So Khalil Herbert, very fantasy relevant there. And the Bucks, it seems like a while since they've played that Thursday night football game in that win against the Eagles. They're 5-1. Gronk may or may not be back this week. For mine, I don't know why you'd risk him. They probably can get away without.
Hasn't been practicing. So, yeah, I think, like you say, alluding to right now, Peps, is, we don't need him currently. Let's rest him up and save him for playoff football when we're going to need Gronk.
They've actually, I thought they really would have stomped on the Eagles. I think that game, the Brady returning to Foxborough game, I thought they would have really put their mark on. Look, they're 5-1. They're the defending Super Bowl champs. They should win pretty easily. I just, for mine, some of their wins have been a little bit less convincing than I would have thought. But look, Brady's playing out of his skin as a 44-year-old. Playoff Lenny is regular season Lenny now. He's trucking it up very well. Monks, it's your team. Did you catch that?
Can I just make a point here? Monks also did fuck Richard Sherman last week, giving him the big shout out. And then he was like, he's been so good for us. He's actually really helped, rah, rah, rah. And then goes out first quarter, does his hamstring, is going to miss a couple of weeks. So there you go, a bit of curse from the Monks there.
Yeah.
Yes, the opinions of someone on a podcast that barely anyone listens to in a different
on the other side of the world. Yeah,
why the soft tissue failed on the cornerback of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers.
He put that juju in the world, and that's what happens.
That's true. So I'll go back to what I was saying a couple of weeks ago. And yeah, Sherman's going to be playing that mentor role. He won't really be too involved. It was close to a week ago now, so. My short-term memory, I don't remember too much from the game. Like I mentioned last week in the podcast, there's a few, I guess, niggling injuries in the defense for the Bucks. That's probably why the game last week was a little bit closer than we would have expected. Similar situation, but I think they should do much better against the Bears than the Eagles last week.
I think Levante David's still injured for Tampa.
Yeah.
It's all good.
Yeah, he's still...
His counterpart, Devin White,
He has got to be the best young inside linebacker in the league at the moment. He's going to come on leaps and bounds. He's very, very good to watch. So $3 here. The odds and the total match points and the line might be more interesting ones.
Line as well, yeah. So Bucks are favourites, $1.13. The Bears are out at $6.05. We've got total match points of 47 and a line of 12.5.
Ooh, I don't mind the overs there, 47. I suppose the question there is, can this Bears offense score on the Bucks defense? But you can't imagine the Bucks score less than 30 in this one. Another game on Sunday afternoon, which looks like it could get pretty ugly, is the 1-5 Texans taking on the undefeated Arizona Cardinals. The Texans were bad against the Colts last week. I actually took them with a 17-point line. That was an adjusted one, and by about halftime, I knew I'd fucked up there. The Cardinals, they're undefeated. Look, on paper, via their record, they're the best team in the NFL. They were the underdogs against the Browns. Sean, you picked them, but me and Monks went the Browns. I don't know why everyone kept sleeping on these cards. They're legit. What do we reckon?
Yeah, well, they've got the best wide receiver on their team, so.
Hey, are you talking about AJ Green a few years ago? Yes, there's
I'm talking about DeAndre Hopkins.
There's an argument to be made there.
You might want to go check some stats, Peps, because I think there's only one dude on pace for Jerry Rice numbers at the moment. So, but yeah, either way, the Arizona Cardinals are a very good football team. We talked about how stacked they were coming into the season, of how good their defense has been, and well, how good their defense could possibly be with all the additions they've made to that team. We're kind of concerned about their corners, but their secondaries are playing pretty well. They've got good talent all over the defense. JJ Watt's been great for them. And then their offense has keep rolling. James Conner is playing a role. Rotates in and out with Chase there. So they're a good football team, and I think they're deservedly owed to be 6-0, and they should beat the Texans quite handily in this one.
Yeah, we're talking. Let's just put it in the books. They're 7-0, and we've got to start seriously talking about them being a Super Bowl, maybe not a Super Bowl contender, maybe a Super Bowl favorite. Let's start talking about Arizona seriously. Let's stop sleeping on them. They win this one comfortably. It'll obviously be 3 Cardinals tips. The under overs and the line will be more interesting, mate.
Yeah, definitely not sleeping on the Cards this week. They are favourites, $1.06. The Texans are out at $9.50. So put everything on the Cards on this one. The total match points is 47.5, and the line is 17.5.
Big line. That is a big line to cover. But that's what I gave. That's what I gave them against the Colts. And this Cardinals seems a fair bit better than that. Speaking of the Colts, they take on the 49ers in a Sunday night football game, which is possibly a little bit underwhelming for prime time. The Colts were very good against the Texans, as I mentioned. Jonathan Taylor, who's really hit his strides the last few weeks, he had 145 rushing yards and 2 touchdowns. And T.Y. Hilton, he was back. We haven't seen him this year. He had 4 catches for 80 yards. It's uncertain, though, if he will play this week. The 49ers are coming off a bye. Interesting game here in that the Tennessee Titans seem to be the best team in the AFC South. The NFC West is stacked. These will be teams that are kind of nibbling, trying to sneak into the playoffs. So a big matchup in terms of playoff ramifications. What do we think here, lads? I'm not convinced on the 49ers. This is my upset of the week. I'm going the Colts.
Yeah, I've also backed the Colts, and I'm just trying to actually confirm who the quarterback's going to be for the 49ers, because it looks like Trey Lance is injured. He's got a knee sprain.
I don't know who the third quarterback is.
Yeah, Jimmy G's back at training, but I'm not sure if he's ready or not. If he is, it's going to be Jimmy G. Otherwise, yeah, good question. Do they have Mullen still there?
I think it's Brucey off the longest yard. You just got to watch out if he's had too much popcorn. That damn popcorn, the ball gets slippery. Yeah, I hadn't considered that. I thought it would have been either Jimmy G or Trade Lance going forward. And, well, that backs up my tip, I guess.
They don't have any other quarterbacks, so
They don't.
it's going to be one of those. I think Jimmy G is probably going to be the one to go, but who Jimmy G's backup is if Trey Lance can't go with his knee sprain, be quite interesting. But I do like where the Colts are, and I think I said it last week. They're a team kind of starting to hit their mojo. They're getting their guys back healthy. The defense looks like it's playing pretty good. Starting to get there. So yeah, I've picked the Colts in this one. Miss Monkey, what's the odds?
Interesting. You've all made very, very valid points. That being said, I'm not.
But they're wrong, and I'm picking the 49ers.
That's it. I'm not going to put the curse on the Colts. I'm hoping that the 49ers will come in. Like I said at the top of the NFL segment, I tried to back a few upsets last week, and it did not pay off. So I'm just keeping it on the straight and narrow this week. 49ers are favourites at $1.44. The Colts are out at $2.81. So it's pretty good value for the Colts based on you guys' opinions. Total match points is 44.5, and we've got a line of 4.5.
Yeah, probably won't touch
not sure on any of that, to be honest. Let's move forward. Monday Night Football. The notes writer here forgot to write any notes. The Saints coming off a bye, so it'll be interesting to see what they can do. They're 3-2, and the Seahawks they lost in primetime last week to the Steelers. They're 2-4. Geno Smith is obviously at the helm with the Russell Wilson injury. This will be an interesting one. Normally two powerhouses in the NFC. What do we reckon, boys? I think the Saints are coming off a week off with Geno at the helm. I'm going Saints.
Yeah, I've picked the Saints as well because, well, at the start of the season, did you see the Seahawks being 2-4 after 6 weeks? Probably not. Maybe those numbers reverse as like a 4-2 team. But coming into the Saints here, I think the Saints overall are probably a better team. Defensively, they're a better defense. They've got a comparable quarterback now with Winston and Geno Smith, but they've also got Kamara on that offense side of the ball, whereas the Seahawks, unsure who's going to play running back for them. Alex Collins, of course, potentially.
Yeah, he's banged up.
So
DJ Dallas.
Or whether Penny's healthy enough to play. It's going to be Gino relying on DK and Lockett there, but whether that's enough against that Saints front seven's pretty good. Yep. They haven't played as well this year as they did last year. But I still think the Saints have got more than enough talent in this one, so I'm picking them.
Monks, before you jump in, I just want to go back to that comparison between Jameis Winston and Geno Smith. I think that's a little harsh on Jameis. I think he is the better quarterback in this matchup. I suppose time will tell. But yeah, Saints for mine. I think the Seahawks as well. Look, you did mention who would have thought the Seahawks being 2-4, but who would have thought this NFC West was going to be as good as it is? I think the Seahawks and probably the 49ers are going to do it tough this year, considering how good the Cardinals and Rams are both looking.
Yeah, that's it. I think I saw late last week that Russell Wilson was in practice throwing a few passes with his left hand. So depending on how Geno Smith plays this weekend, we might see Wilson starting a few weeks early. I'm just kidding.
With his left hand, do you think?
With his left hand.
You ever tried to do things left-handed? It's quite difficult.
Depends if you like a stranger or not.
Of course, about throwing balls and
of course, that's what we're talking about.
Beers, etc., etc.
Yeah, opening beers.
Very, very difficult to do.
I've gone Saints as well. They are favourites at $1.46. Seahawks is out at $2.75.
I think that's probably a bit short. My thinking. I think this game will be closer than that.
Yeah, I agree. The 275 is a bit, for the Seahawks. I think that's a bit long. The Saints on the road, the 12th man getting involved. not sure I like that head-to-head. I'll stick by my tip, but it seems a little short to me.
Yeah,
It's a line
definitely.
of like 10-ish, 10 plus.
Line 4.5.
Ooh.
And
Very odd.
That's juicy. That's juicy.
That is juicy.
we've got total match points of 42.5 as well.
Yeah, but banged up Seahawks offense, I guess. This Saints team probably relying a little bit more on their defense than they normally do. But an enthralling Monday Night Football game there. Boys, that wraps up the NFL for the week and a big American sport that we love. It seems like not that long ago that we were talking about the NBA finals, the NBA playoffs. We're back. Opening night saw two big matchups between East contenders and West contenders. In the East, we saw the Bucks take on the Nets. The Bucks did it pretty comfortably. Giannis looked like Giannis. I think a lot of this season is going to come down to who can stop that man. Pat Connaughton and Chris Middleton were both pretty good. We talked about our boy, I shouted him a beer, Patty Mills, excellent for the Nets. KD had a good stat line. What do we think here, boys, in the East? I tend to think these will be the two best teams in the East. I can't imagine, well, what have we got? The 76ers, the Celtics, possibly bothering these guys. You'd think these two are 1 and 2 in the East?
Yeah, and you look at the other side as well with the Warriors and Lakers as that second game there. Like these are the four of the teams you could potentially talking about as your last four. So, they're going to be definitely very deep into the playoffs, into that final bracket. They're like, as long as they stay healthy, I think that's always going to be the question. If they can all stay healthy, then yeah, they can. They've got dominant rosters. They've got big names. They've got big sets there. So you can see them all gone very, very deep.
It's an interesting point you raised there about staying healthy, because in terms of depth, you think the Lakers and perhaps the Nets could absorb injuries, but what do you see a Warriors without Steph or a Bucks without Giannis doing? Perhaps depth there a little bit going towards the Lakers and the Bucks. I'll tell you what, boys.
I'm going to say Lakers, though, are old. So
they are old. I think their average age is nearly 2 years older than the next team in the NBA. But they're also just an all-star lineup. It's pretty weird to see Rajon Rondo and Carmelo Anthony coming off the bench together to play for the Los Angeles Lakers. I think I saw a meme this week it was the All-Star team, I think, from about 5 years ago. And it's the Los Angeles Lakers now. They've pretty much pilfered all the best talent in the league that is, a little bit older. Didn't help them in this game. The Warriors coming out winners. It was very, very interesting. LeBron was he's ageless. He shot the ball well. He had 34 points. AD played well, but I think that back end might be a bit of an issue. Russell Westbrook, not very involved. And I sent you boys a picture of his pre-game get-up. It was straight out of Scooby-Doo, or as much like to say, this was a good pick-up out of you. Ada, the starting girl from the race in Greece, when they go to the big stormwater drains in Los Angeles, he was rocking some kind of scarf / singlet / colours all over the place get up. I tell you what, though, he didn't look himself in this team. Look, it's his first game. Maybe it's a little bit early to say. We are talking about a bloke that averaged a triple-double for a whole season. You'd think he'd probably find his feet in this team. What do you reckon about Russ Westbrook and the Lakers?
Yeah, well, I think you covered it. The Lakers probably going to take a month to hit their stride. I reckon get that chemistry. New guys coming in, especially old vets that have probably done it one way before and kind of have to fit into that team culture and how essentially LeBron probably wants to run that team and how they fit around him and Anthony Davis and kind of build into that team mentality, having been superstars elsewhere. So, yeah, it's probably going to, I think it'll probably take a month for them to hit their strides. Not to say they didn't do too bad in here. Like, they only lost by 7 points. So it's to a Warriors team led by Curry. So they're definitely going to be there. Which is probably scary, is they can be a lot better than they have been, I think, in this game. So
yeah. And let's go back to Steph. He had 21 points, which is a little low for him, but he had a triple-double, and it was his first triple-double since 2016. And they interviewed him after the game, and he goes, "It was good that we got the win because I played like trash." He wasn't himself from three-point range. Jordan Poole really stepped up. That'll be interesting to see how the young shooting guard goes. And Klay Thompson, who knows, because this seems like the longest time out that I've ever heard from an Achilles injury. The poor fella, he's barely played for the last 2 years, and he will be instrumental in the way that this Warriors season goes. But yeah, for them to go out and beat the Lakers when Steph kind of has an off night is very, very interesting, albeit one game.
So I was just checking it. Maybe, he did his ACL and then followed that up with a ruptured Achilles. So he's had back to back.
That's
Because I was
right.
thinking KD's did his Achilles and came back in the same time frame that Klay Thompson was still injured. So
yeah, it makes you wonder about the extent of the injury. I'm trying to finish off my physical therapy degree, and normally an Achilles, even a complete rupture, you normally expect people back within 6 months. It's not like an ACL rehab. They tend to rehab a little bit better. The bloke's banged up, he had the ACL and then into the Achilles. It's kind of strange to see him out this long. Maybe they're just playing the conservative approach and just a kind of wait and see mentality around Klay Thompson. But with him, back in that lineup, the Splash Brothers, can he emulate the Klay of old? We will see. But they're definitely a force to be reckoned with after a few years of being in the wilderness after that long, illustrious run of 4 finals in a row.
Yeah. And the final note here I had on Klay was looking likely he'll be cleared for full contact practices within a month.
So he can't be too far off. There was a bunch of games Wednesday night, our morning today. We won't go through them all. We'll just have a look at the best performers. LaMelo Ball was very good. He had 31 points in Charlotte's win over the Pacers. He was 7 of 9 from 3-point land, so nearly as good as our Patrick Mills.
Where do you think Ball can get to by the end of this season?
Well, Rookie of the Year last year, I think he could probably get to a top 20 player in the NBA. Are the Hornets going to be bothering anyone late playoffs? No. I think they're a playoff team with him. He's got tremendous talent. He's young. But look, he can't put – I don't think he's at the stage where he can put a team on his back and just carry him through. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I probably agree with you. Maybe that's not really – well, he did score 31 points, didn't he? Yeah, I think he's growing into that sort of type of player. I can have a complete mind blank, kind of like the Atlanta Hawks.
Trae Young.
Trae Young, kind of like how Trae Young played with the Hawks, kind of carrying them in there. I think he might be growing into that kind of player.
Yeah, Trae came a long way this year. But was not that highly touted coming out of college. No one expected him to do what he did in the playoffs. So, look, that's a big comparison, but I don't think he's far off.
Yeah, I think he could. So my point being, I think he could take Charlotte where like Trae took Atlanta last year. That's my thinking. He could just get hot towards the end of the year and take one on a run.
And basketball is one of those games where, we've seen LeBron do it for fucking 15 years where any game where one player can put a team on their back and carry them, it is basketball. So interesting to see what happens with the Hornets there going forward. The Celtics and the Knicks, they played a double overtime game today, which was wild scenes 2 days into the NBA to see double overtime. Jaylen Brown put up 46 for the Celtics in a loss. I
it's one of the older rivalries in basketball. I expect both of these teams to be pretty good in the East. So good to see that happen today. And speaking of the East, we got to talk about it. We're Australians. The 76ers, they won today against the Pelicans without Ben Simmons. No worries. A lot of media attention around Ben Simmons going to training and not participating in drills. It seemed to be a bit of back and forth with Doc Rivers. We obviously saw him sit out of the Olympics and, said he was going to work on his shooting. And I think I said to you boys in our text, in perhaps less delicate terms, I really want to be a Ben Simmons fan, but he's really making it hard for me, boys. What do we think?
Yeah, agree.
Yeah.
It's he wants out, and I think he's pushing that message as well. I think I used the Marshawn Lynch quote. I'm only here because I don't want to get fined. Essentially, he's shown up to training to capture paycheck. He's not going to work overly hard for that. He's just going to do what he needs to do. And if that's not what the 76ers want, then you should trade me and move me on. I think he's what he's getting at, because it doesn't sound like he wants to be there.
It's hard on his teammates because all that shit, for mine, should be sorted out in the off season when you're, reporting and you're meant to be doing a job for a team. And Joel Embiid didn't hold back with his comments. I think saying it's not his job to babysit Ben. It seems like an absolute shit show there in the city of brotherly love. And look, it'd be interesting to see what happens moving forward. And it's difficult for us as Australian basketball fans. Yeah.
I don't think they can keep the situation going.
No.
They don't want to be paying Ben a max contract if he's going to sit on the sideline. You just wait. You're just wasting that away. You're paying him for nothing and you get nothing in return.
Yeah, but Ben's not doing himself any favors either. Like he's
Okay.
not helping his stock. Like, what coach is going to want to bring someone in with that attitude, and what team is going to want someone with that in their locker room? Like, he's just really ostracizing himself from all the players in the league. Really.
Yeah, it's a funny thing, talent and versus attitude. We spoke highly of Paddy Mills before. A guy that's undersized, that perhaps doesn't have all the physical attributes that Ben Simmons has, but what he's got is heart and attitude, and he's got it in spades. And look, you ask any basketball fan, especially of the Australian variety, who you'd rather on your team, and I think 99% would be taking Paddy Mills.
Especially when he's 100% for three pointers at the moment.
Yeah, baby. Yeah, let's go. They, interestingly, I think the Nets take on the 76ers tomorrow night. So that will be interesting to see what happens there. Boys, the NBA is back. I can't wait. I do also need to piss my pants. So if one of you could please let us into the soccer of the week, and I'll be back in a minute. Thank you very much.
Well, I might stall for a minute and talk about MVPs because I think
good point. Yep. That point. Yep.
Yeah. So potential, because we talked a little bit about who we think are finals, and there are some excellent teams kind of floating around. Two that we didn't talk about that also played today were the Suns and the Nuggets. Suns losing to the Nuggets, and my MVP kind of shout would be last year's MVP. We've got to talk about the Joker because he's still doing Joker things, and if he stays as healthy as he does and puts up the numbers that he does with the amount of triple doubles as well, didn't get a triple double in that game, but if he continues that kind of form, maybe he can go back to back. I don't think back to back's a pretty regular thing in the NBA. I will double check that quickly. But do you have any thoughts, Marks, on a MVP for the league this year?
No, yeah, I think you're pretty.
I do lie because the Joker won it last year, of course. Sorry to interrupt you. Anas won it the 2 years before that, so he went back to back. Westbrook, then Curry won it back to back. Durant won one, then LeBron won it back to back. Rose, then LeBron won it back to back. Tim Duncan won it back to back. So
it happens a lot.
Michael Magic. Yeah, so winning MVPs back happens a fair bit in the NBA. So the Joker maybe to go back to back would be a fair shout. I'm not sure if you can pull up some odds real quick.
That's it.
He might be towards the top.
No, definitely. And I think that just shouts volumes about the consistency of the NBA players at the moment, especially at that high level. So yeah, to that, Joker and the Greek Freak are both sitting at $6 as favourites for the MVP for this season. Behind them, we've got KD sitting at $7.50. Steph Curry's always thereabouts at $8.50. And then it starts dropping off with Embiid at $10 and LeBron James at $14.
I was going to ask you where LeBron was because if he keeps putting up, what was it, 34 points, 11 assists and 5 rebounds, or it might have been 11 rebounds and 5 assists, depending how he wrote it. If he can stay healthy and do that all year, then and if he plays predominantly a lot of the games and doesn't get rested very much, of course he can be in that conversation for MVP. But my pick was the Joker. Peps, do you have a pick for MVP? Monk's just said, what was it? Joker and Giannis are $6, and they're the top favourites at the moment for MVP.
I'm going to take Giannis. Nothing to take away from Nikola Jokic. One of the best seasons we've seen from a centre in a long, long time. But just that playoff run, especially after he had that nasty-looking knee injury where he only missed a few games, to come back and just dominate. I think the NBA. Look, we love the regular season, but I think the playoffs come down to who can guard Giannis and slow him down. He'll be my early pick for the MVP. In terms of taking out the competition, I think that's a bit of a different one because he probably doesn't have the supporting cast that some other teams have. The Lakers, despite, they lost its one game out of 82. I think they're very, very stacked. I'll take the Lakers in the West, and I'll take the. I'll say Bucks and Lakers finals.
Yeah, and as I was just saying before to Monks, there's a lot of teams that could potentially make it deep into that finals. We didn't talk about the Suns, of course. Nuggets as well and play playoffs. Of course, there's the Hawks there. There's a lot of really good teams. As they always are, but there's a lot of really good talent there. 76ers players.
There's no reason why the Jazz can't go deep. So look, obviously, on paper you look at these Nets and Lakers and the defending champs in the Bucks, but there's no reason why a Suns or a Jazz or a young Hawks, or if the 76ers can get their shit together, that they can't go deep. Look, the Celtics. Who knows? Anyways, the NBA's back. Can't wait. And I just want
to cover up for you. If Giannis does win the MVP, he would have won 3 from the last 4 too. So
yeah, right. I've also done a Frank the Tank. The Joker's sitting at 15 odds at the moment. I was thinking Luka is at $6.
Luka.
Oh, look, we all make mistakes. At least a couple of minutes in between realising, unlike the Frank the Tank Kaminsky, where it was about 2 hours before we realised.
That's it, yeah.
That's live podcasting.
Exactly. So if I go back to favourites for the season, so yeah, Lakers are favourites to win the West at $2.88. Nets are favourites to win the East at $2.20. Bucks are at $4 there. And we have got the Nets winning it all at $3.50.
Yeah.
Excuse me for my ignorance, but $2 whatever, $2.20, $2.80 to take out a whole conference, that's way too short for mine.
Considering it's day 1, day 2. That's short.
Game, 81 games to go. You can't just go off a team on paper. And as we saw, a lot of it comes down to what happens in the playoffs. A lot of people were saying, it's the Nets last year. They've put together this big 3. They're the monsters, as we were referring to them, and they didn't even make
the conference finals. So,
Yeah.
conference final? No, the one before. Anyways, point being is that is way too short for mine. I don't like any of that, and I'd love to see a smaller franchise this year. Like your Suns, like your Jazz, like your Hawks go deep in this NBA season.
Let's see. Well, you mentioned the Hawks. They're $19 at the moment for Eastern Conference. So yeah, and they pushed it pretty deep last year as well. So
be interesting to see. Anyways, we've got a lot of NBA ahead of us.
That's it.
So I think we need to then go to the soccer and talk a little bit about the EPL before we get into Champions League. I think we probably should talk about what's happening in Newcastle at the moment. Of course, we mentioned, I think 2 weeks ago, they got purchased by I think it ends up being an investment firm, which has very heavy Saudi backing with it.
I think it was a public investment fund for Saudi Arabia.
There you go.
I think it's the most financially solid backing of a team ever. Like we think about the ascendancy of Manchester City recently in the last 10 years since they got bought out. So apparently these guys are worth more than the City takeover.
Yeah, I think they smoke them.
Yeah. However, dollars does not necessarily equal success. There's been a lot of noise this week. Sean, what has happened? There seems to be a lot of heads on the chopping block at Newcastle.
Yeah, well, they've already started their cleaning of house. Of course, Newcastle, I think, are still second last in that relegation zone. So they've already sacked the coach. He's gone. The league also was worried. So when I say the league, the rest of the league, so all the other teams were worried about in-place sponsorship deals, potentially Saudi-based deals that the Newcastle team would have in place, which would give them, say, an unfair advantage. Not that they've already got $500 billion behind them. I don't think a couple more $1 billion worth of sponsorships going to be
$500 billion.
going to be much of an issue. But
that is in the Dr. Evil voice.
Yeah, of the 20 clubs, 18 voted it through. Newcastle were one that didn't, and I think City abstained, of course, because as you mentioned, they have their huge backing. Probably want some favorism as well. So yeah, a little bit of stirring the pot, of course, with the new ownership coming in. The fans kind of taking to it very quickly, wearing fake Arab head coverings or looking like Saudis in the crowd.
They colour matched it to look like magpies, hadn't they? Most of saying pre-show they had a little bit of a black and white about their head dressings.
Yeah,
I think it was something like that. Yeah.
Yeah. So I think the club, allowing it because they can't really prevent it, but they're also like, please don't just do it if you're taking the piss, kind of thing. But English soccer fans taking the piss, I don't think you can stop that from happening.
No. That's it. And I think the EPL and I think a lot of the European leagues do have some sort of rules around. So they call it the financial fair play rules. So it restricts how much they can spend. So they just can't go out and basically buy a team of superstars. So as much as they've got the money to throw around, it's still going to be sort of that multi-year build where they just each year just keep on buying more and more players and work their way back up the ladder that way. So
those rules must be pretty soft, monks, considering. Look, maybe you can't do it in 1 year, but we'll let you do it in 3. But look, hats off to Newcastle United fans. It'll be interesting to see. Haven't done too much of late, going deep in terms of the league or European football. But obviously going to have a lot of money behind the Magpies.
Of course, there was a round of games on the weekend. As mentioned when we kicked off, Liverpool did smash Watford. It's probably one of the interesting ones. Leicester City did get a win over Man United. Man City beat Burnley. Chelsea got a win.
Top of the table.
Arsenal.
Chelsea.
Chelsea. Arsenal did get a win also over Crystal Palace, which I think
draw that was, I believe.
But
yeah, the table's starting to take a bit of shape. Chelsea up the top there. United have dropped a few recently. Liverpool and City round out the top 4.
Liverpool hasn't lost a game yet also.
But they're not first, are they?
No, they've had 3 draws,
No.
so they haven't lost a game so far out of their.
So Brighton's the one that's rounding out the top 4 at
Right,
the moment.
yeah, Brighton.
Yeah.
Get around the Seagulls. Brighton goes out. Can't imagine that's how the season finishes, but good on them. A red-hot start from the team from Southern England. I tell you what, boys, as a United fan, a little disappointed with the last few results. They started the season pretty well and have dropped a few games. Look, it's match day 8 in a very long season. You got to take it with a grain of salt, I suppose. But it'll be interesting to see what happens moving forward. We did have Champions League games this week and a few interesting ones. The biggest thing of note, I think, our share of Tiraspol, the Moldovans, the formerly top of their group Moldovans, they caught their first loss. They lost to Inter Milan. They succeeded 3 goals. But in other news, Man City played very well. PSG got over Leipzig. Messi and Mbappe involved there. Liverpool got a win away at Atletico. Very difficult to get a win there at the Wanda Metropolitana. And I tell you who we got to watch out for, Ajax. They are 4-0. They got over Borussia Dortmund, a big win for them. Real Madrid, who had a slow start to the Champions League, they put away Shakhtar Donetsk. United had a late comeback against Atalanta, and Chelsea looking pretty good there. So, look, a lot of the big guns firing. We are halfway through the group games. It'll be interesting to see what happens moving forward.
Got a favourite? PSG?
For the whole thing?
Yep.
Ooh, look, gun to my head.
Really?
United.
Definitely not. As a United fan, definitely not. Look, if I had to choose one of these excellent teams, Bayern Munich is who I'd be going with. I think they look very, very solid. But it's very early days, I suppose. The big knock on PSG is that they've never won one of these things. So it'd be interesting to see what happens. But look, we've got Champions League football. It's heating up. All the leagues in Europe picking up. So it was interesting to see what happens.
Yep. So with that wraps up soccer, and I think that means we got to get into our final round and wrap this bitch up. So as always, we kick the final round off with UFC. There is a UFC fight night coming up on the weekend, followed then, of course, by UFC 267, and the following weekend, UFC 268. Sorry, we get back-to-back pay-per-views, which is pretty cool.
Yeah.
And they're both really good pay-per-views as well. But if we come back to the fight night, the fight of interest is Paulo Costa taking on Marvin Vettori. The issue with this is Costa can't make weight. He literally had a press conference today. He was 220 pounds, so they can't make middleweight. Yeah, maybe I exaggerate. He was over 200.
Yeah, it's 211. So I think he said he was 96 kilos.
Yeah, so still, that's 30 pounds over the weight he's meant to be making that he signed a contract for.
Very difficult to cut that much in a few days. So
he said he basically said, I can't do it. So if and then he kind of put it on his opponent and said, hey, if they don't want to make this fight happen, it's it's on them, etc., etc. It's like, you didn't make fucking weight, bro. Like,
yeah.
Yeah. So, hey, anyway, they're going to do a catch weight of 195. I joke here that Costa's his cycle off didn't work too well for him. So, hey, we'll see how that goes. But if he's 211 with 3 days out from fight, maybe he should be thinking about moving up a weight division.
Well, after the news of that Adesanya loss, of him getting on the red vinos the night before, perhaps that may have played into where his weight is at.
Too many bags.
He's a very good-looking man. He's very well put together. Unfortunately, got found out by Israel Adesanya the last time they fought. It's pretty hard to compare the two.
both coming off losses against the middleweight champ. I suppose Vittori looked better than Costa did. Is probably my only insight into this one. And I just wonder where Costa's head's at. The missing weight, all the stuff that came out against his loss, which is I think about a year ago now.
Yeah. And pretty sure he hasn't fought since then either. So
no, I don't believe so. So I think for mine, Marvin.
Yeah, like talent-wise, hey, on paper this should be a really good fight, and they should be very competitive. But yeah, I'd rather Vittori wins after all the shit that Costa's kind of been going through. And September 2020 was his last fight against the champion for Costa to confirm that.
There you go. That was the start of our podcast. I think that was around about the start of our podcast. So well done, boys. We've been going about a year.
Yeah. So yeah, after all the shit and the kind of trying to put it on his opponent when he was the one that failed professionally, fuck Costa. I would rather Vittori wins this one.
Maybe we can make it a little bit musical, if you will. When you're hit like a bomb by a something, that's Vittori. That's Vittori. The joke was there. The execution was poor. Monks.
We'll say that for next week.
I've got Vittori. Sean's got Vittori. The odds in your tip, please.
Yeah, this is an interesting one. Obviously, with Costa holding a bit of weight, does that play into the fact that he's probably going to hit a little bit heavier, or is that going to just cost him in his cardio? That being said, I'm going with Vittori as well. He is favourite at $1.61. Costa is out at $2.25. And we've got method of victory. The method of victory is actually in Costa's favour. TKO at $3.30.
Is this a 5-rounder? Or is it?
That's a great question.
Main events, yes, I think it is.
Tend to be 5 rounds.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Even
they sometimes change it up based on signed
contract. And it's not an official UFC event. It is just a UFC fight night. But that'll be interesting. You'd think Costa at his size perhaps might struggle to go longer. But yeah, as Izzy said, it's not about bodybuilding, it's about fighting.
That's it. And yeah, it is a 5-round fight.
5-round fight.
I realise I've got the odds for the rounds right in front of me.
Yeah, it's scheduled for that as well.
And hit by Vittori.
Anyway, that's the main fight on that card. UFC 267's looking very tasty the week after, and we will tackle that in depth next week.
Maybe next week.
That.
Back in the studio, boys. Let's go.
Yes. Some local league news. We should wrap up. We start off with the NRL and the confirmation, of course, today that Wayne Bennett will be the coach for the Dolphins team for at least the next 4 years.
Is it 4 years? 4 years that he signed on for?
4 years. So he will be 75 by the time that deal ends.
70. I thought it was going to be like 138 by the time.
Well, that's current contract. He might retire from the Dolphins after that time frame, like another 40 years.
I'm just hoping he doesn't
10 premierships under his belt.
That is a 4-year deal. And we have spoken about it on the podcast before. He's been coaching first grade since 1987. So that is wild. I guess not really news. It was kind of, what everyone had assumed was going to happen.
Yeah, deal done today, and they did the presser. Interesting thing Bennett did say they're planning it. They don't have a staff yet, so they're going to put a staff together and build the culture essentially that they want for the Dolphins. But he did say that they want to do something like they did in Souths, where they find who's going to be their next head coach after he retires, potentially after the 4 years that he's there at the club. So pretty interesting. The media, of course, trying to get headlines out of Wayne, and Wayne was having none of it. But the big kind of talking point everyone keeps talking about is the controversy around the name and having no location associated with it. there was some original chat that, hey, fans would be able to have input into that. And then the Dolphins backtracked on it and then said, hey, we're going to be known as the Dolphins going forward. But then everyone's kind of like, well, you're shitting on your heritage. Well, you need some sort of location. As we mentioned, they're the only team without a location associated with their club, whether it needs to be Brisbane, North Brisbane, Montney Bay, Redcliffe, Sunshine Coast, whatever. Like, they've got plenty of options they could pick from. Maybe that's the problem. They've got too many, so they just said, fuck it, we'll pick the Dolphins. But
well, if they go to a fan poll, they might be Dolphy McDolphin face. So that is issue surrounding that one. Yeah, look, it's interesting that they don't want to attach Redcliffe to the name. We did speak about it, I think, a few podcasts ago, that Redcliffe itself is not actually that big a population. Maybe North Brisbane, maybe Sunshine Coast, maybe Moreton Bay makes sense. But look, what's in a name? If the team's successful, people will get around it, I suppose.
Yeah, and the final bit, because everyone's talking about the Dolphins now, there's been a bit of leaks of what the potential jersey could be. I think they signed a deal with Classic to do their jersey. So red and white, essentially, predominantly red. So they don't, of course, clash with St. George's, the only other, say, reddish and whitish team. So predominantly red with white kind of stripes around the shoulder, like a white stripe across and down kind of thing.
It's good they put that out, just in case the 2023 grand final is between the St. George Dragons and the Dolphy McDolphin faces.
Yes. But yeah, besides, because there isn't a predominantly red team in the NRL, is there?
All red? No, red. Yeah, the Dragons are the one that comes to mind. That they, I suppose, are predominantly white, and then red being the second colour. So red is a market that they could tap into.
Yeah, and if some of the other sports teams that wear a lot of red, like the Cardinals, maybe as an example, they definitely can have some very cool looking red jerseys come out of that. So it'd be interesting to see how well they sell. And now I think we wait the next year worth of Wayne building that team. So you probably start asking agents who's available, who can I chat to, and we'll take it from there.
Yeah, a lot of the noise will be around signings. You'd imagine Munster is the man on everyone's lips, but they got to build a full roster. So we'll see what happens there.
Honestly, I think they've gone quiet on Munster because of their little nose candy incident.
Surely not.
They're all talking about. Yeah, they're talking about Welsh and Ponga and all those like Cam Munster's name's kind of fallen down the line a bit. I reckon, that's funny when I think about it. I think the point, my thinking is, I reckon Munster will be a late signing. Like, they'd probably put the other guys together. Who's captain be? Here's most of the roster. Munster come out, have a great year for the Storm, and then towards the end of it, I'm taking my talents to whatever the beach is closest and up to Redcliffe, and that's where he'll end up. And at the end of the year, and that'll be their massive signing, I think, to kick off their off season for next season toward the end of the year, to keep them relevant, if I will.
Moving forward, the AFL has announced that they're going to have a mandatory vaccination for all players. This is a big announcement because we spoke
just a couple of hours ago, but yes, it's just come through that is the case.
Well, we spoke about the NBA before, and we spoke about the NFL and college football coaches getting the axe for not getting the jab. Boys, again, reiterating, obviously we're all pro-jab, pro-vaccine here, but what's our thoughts on mandating that everyone has to be vaccinated to play in the league?
Yeah, and just quickly checking here, Abdo, of course, from the NRL perspective, says they won't go down the same path. So they're not going to follow what the AFL's done here.
Okay.
But yeah, it's interesting. The AFL, they basically say if you're not vaccinated, you can't practice or train, which probably means you probably can't play as well. So it's like, hey, if you want to be a part of the AFL and have a job, you need to get vaccinated. And I think that comes, I can't remember the players exactly, but there's been a bit of in this last week, a bit of chat about several other players about their claims or their kind of stance of where they're at with vaccinations as well.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
AFL basically is going, fuck that. If you want to play in the AFL, you need to be vaccinated, otherwise go elsewhere.
Yeah, they come down hard. I think Matthew Richardson spoke out this weekend, or this week, I should say. The former Richmond Tigers legend kicked about 800 goals. He, I think, tweeted saying that he has a immunocompromised family member, and he said essentially, if you're not getting the jab, pull your head in, kind of thing. I don't want this to be a really divisive thing around sport. We've seen enough of it in the media and in social media. But yeah, a very interesting call by the AFL to mandate vaccines. Monks, your thoughts, please.
Yeah, I mean, you got to tread that line between public health and safety and being able to respect people's personal decisions. Which is always very hard when you're looking at something like this. You don't know how well, I guess we're moving away from talking about sport here, but when we talk about herd immunity and all that sort of stuff, it's difficult to be able to understand what the outcomes will be from making a decision now, and what it's going to look like in a week's time or 2 months' time or 12 months' time. I think AFL is obviously being cautious. They've seen what happens when, I guess, the league has to go into bubbles and all that sort of stuff. So, and I guess the evidence is there that vaccines are okay, they're safe. So they're being cautious. They're saying, yes, we need to push these onto the players. NRL, like you mentioned, is gone the other way at the moment. They're happy accepting the risk of COVID. Yeah, I can't say one way or the other what's the right answer. I've been vaccinated. My cell phone reception hasn't changed. I haven't got any better 5G.
This is Bill Gates. Kill everything.
Bill Gates, I haven't heard from Bill Gates yet. There's no voices in my head. Well, at least he's not in my head yet.
He can jump over a chair. Don't forget that.
That is true. Yeah,
Can I just throw in a point here as well? I think the AFL, and we'll use that NRL comparison, as a slightly different circumstances because they do play in every state. So, and they do play in Western Australia and South Australia as well, which have, Western Australia definitely a bit more stricter on their requirements for getting in and out of the state. So the AFL's gone, hey, we want to schedule these games. We want to be able to travel across the country to be able to put on great football for all our fans. So don't fuck it up, players who get pulled in a line, essentially. Whereas NRL, of course, is predominantly on the East Coast and got to deal with Queensland, Sydney and Melbourne as their kind of go-between. And all three of those have had COVID to some extent, and they can deal with that, I think, a little bit easier than what the AFL is going to have to do for the coming season. So I think it's just them just pulling their weight and just saying, hey, make it easy on us so we don't have to move games around, jump it around like we did this season, just to get the whole schedule in.
So, they're definitely looking at the sustainability of the league and making sure that they can get a full season out of it next year.
But I think it'll be an interesting fortnight. Of course, the announcement made a couple of hours ago, our time. So I think the fallout yet to come, and we'll probably hear about that in the next couple of weeks.
Yeah, you watch the next few weeks. There will be a number of players come out and be pretty upset with this. So we'll follow that as it comes. Boys, one of our, look, let's be honest, middle tier sports, but the Major League Baseball, they're going down to the National League and the American League finals. Houston, they lead Boston 3-2, and Atlanta lead the LA Dodgers 3-1. Have you guys been keeping an eye on this at all?
Yeah, a little bit through the week, kind of catching it up. It looks like Atlanta's taken a handily lead there I think their next game might be back in LA from memory, but I'd have to double check that. And Houston the same. The Astros been playing very well. Of course, they won it. They won last year or the year before. They've won recently.
Sure, Monks will bring that one up. I look, obviously no baseball experts here. I did see that both number one seeds didn't make it through to this. So very interesting to see what happens. I've got no idea. We aren't baseball experts by any means, but we'll obviously keep an eye on the World Series.
Well, it's looking like a Houston versus Atlanta World Series at this point. So we will, of course, cover that when it comes around in the next week or so. But it's coming up very, very quickly for the MLB.
Max, who won last year?
You'd think I'd be able to get this a lot easier.
Yeah, I would have thought so.
World Series champions. I'm ranking. I think I beat you. Dodgers beat Rays last year.
The Dodgers are
Yeah.
the defending champs, and they're most likely going to go out to the Braves here.
Yes. Yeah. Nationals beat Astros the year before that. Boston beat Dodgers the year before that. And Astros won in 2017. That's what I'm remembering. And they beat the Dodgers in that one.
Mm.
So it seems like the Astros and Dodgers have had a pretty good run of it of late. I challenge either of you to name 10 baseball players and get back to me in the next week. Mike Trout, and we'll go from there.
If I've got a week, that's not too hard.
Give me 30 seconds and I'll Google it.
And off the top of the head?
Yeah.
Yeah, no, not off the top of the head.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
Shohei Ohtani.
Yeah.
What about F1, boys? Something that you do know a little bit about.
Before F1, while we're on baseball, I just want to shout out to the Australian baseball community. The Australian Baseball League recently announced that they've had to cancel their upcoming season for the 2021-22 season due to border restrictions and the ongoing impact of COVID. So yeah, just shout out to anyone who listens to us that follows the Australian Baseball League. Hopefully we can get back on track in 12 months' time.
Yeah, that's sad news considering we're looking at opening up across state borders and the like. So yeah, shout out to anyone that's involved in that, perhaps missing out on a pay packet or an ability to show one's skills to some scouts perhaps.
And you just did remind me of a story that did come out this week about your best mate, Peps, Novak Djokovic.
Oh, yeah.
Potentially won't be able to come play in the Australian Open because. And
why is that?
Because of his anti-vax stance. So there you go.
Oh, I thought it was a no fuckwits stance by the Australian government.
You almost killed Muggy.
Yeah, look, I wish Novak all the best in his anti-vaccine, vegan, thinks he's better than everyone else. Pursuits, undoubtedly one of the best tennis players ever. But outside of that, I have no further comment. F1 boys, we have the US race coming up. It seems to be a 2-horse race at this stage in terms of the Drivers' Championship. You boys obviously a little bit more invested than I am in the sport. What do we think about this week's race?
Yeah, well, hard to say until I get into practice, and practice, of course, will start tomorrow. This is, of course, in Austin, Texas, this race. Just wanted to highlight, hey, the F1 race on the weekend, watch it. I think Max is back ahead by 6-ish points. So
Yeah,
still pretty close. Like Pep said, 2-horse race. Very interesting to see how McLaren do with their battle with Ferrari. And of course, there's still the battle's kind of through the field as well with Aston Martin and some of the other teams as well. So it's been a really good championship, and of course now being in over in the Americana continents going forward for the next month. there's going to be some good races there. The one interesting point I wanted to make was Ricardo did make a bet with his team owner with McLaren because they do have a NASCAR team. So it looks like Ricardo's going to get a drive in a NASCAR, potentially as a promotional thing, but he will be able to do some circuit work, circle work especially, before this race kicks off. But they've already, I think they stopped part of Dallas or something and had Red Bull drive through Dallas, got a ticket. For media hype, some media beat up leading up into the Formula One race. But hey, it should be an interesting race. The championship's really close. Looking forward to it. Looking forward to another excellent competition.
Definitely, yeah. Potential for a little bit of controversy. So I think during the week, Pierre Gasly came out saying that the track is pretty atrocious. Lots of bumps. I think MotoGP had a race earlier on, potentially even last month, and they reckon the track conditions weren't that great. Obviously, being in Austin, Texas, it gets pretty hot, and the temperature difference, I guess, so that with tarmac isn't all that great. Can cause bumps and ripples in the track. They've had to resurface a couple of the corners quite recently, and even Pirelli. So this is the first time they've raced at Circus of the Americas since 2019. So again, not too much data to go off. So even with Pirelli, I'm trying to work out what their tyre setups going to be this race. They've set them, but not too sure about the wear and tear. So
I'd say hard compounds to limit potential blowouts from punishment across the racetrack. So
is the heat that much of a concern in late October in Texas? I couldn't imagine it being that hot.
Not in terms of heat on race day. I think it's just the general wear and tear over the year with the heat causing the track to expand and contract, expand and contract, expand and contract. I guess it can degrade the surface a little bit. But yeah, we'll have to wait and see. Definitely.
You also got to remember F1 drivers, any little bump they're going to complain about. It needs to be baby bottom smooth. Otherwise, they're not happy.
You're on the princess and the pea.
Yeah, that's it. That's it. But yeah, no, great track. They've got some pretty iconic corners and stuff. That first corner leading out of the straight up the hill to the left is pretty cool to see. Some pretty insane overtakes first lap at that corner as well. So it should be exciting, and hopefully with the tire setups and all that will be a pretty close, pretty contentious race.
Yep. Yeah, it's looking like a good race. Any other final thoughts or comments, lads? My roundup of the current news. I don't think anything's breaking that we need to cover. So I think that'll probably do us.
Yeah.
Wrap us up. Thank you for listening to On The Esky. Obviously, a big weekend forthcoming with the Cricket World Cup, the week that will be in the NFL and the NBA, an F1 race, and Major League Baseball. Our forte, of course, we may have a World Series teams coming forth in the next episode. If you do like this content, please consider subscribing on our YouTube. We do have an Instagram. Check that out. And boys, I will see you in the flesh for the first time in close to 3 months. I can't wait. Let's get stuck into it. Have a good weekend, boys.
Will do.
Yeah.
Thank you, lads. Thank you as always. See you next week.
Catch you.
See you.
Bye.
Bye.